What if the voice in your head isn't really you, but just noise built from old fears, past shame, cultural conditioning, and fragments of everyone you've ever tried to be? Imagine sitting alone, and that voice whispers, "You're not enough." You didn't create that thought. It arrived on its own. But something inside you heard it. Something flinched. Who was that? Neuroscience shows brain activity linked to decisions occurs before we're aware of making them. That means your conscious inner voice isn't the author. It's the echo. Yet beneath it, something observes, a witness. It never explains, never reacts. It just sees. It watches even when you're breaking, even when the voice screams lies. That awareness never leaves. In deep meditation, when the voice quiets and thoughts dissolve, you don't vanish. You become more present, more you. The self behind the narration emerges, not with words, but with stillness. That stillness isn't empty. It's full of awareness. That's not detachment, it's truth. You've felt it before, in moments of awe, in grief, in love without conditions. That's presence. That's home. Split brain research reveals that two halves of the same mind can express conflicting thoughts. One side may say yes, the other no. But a deeper awareness adapts, learns, survives. A silent unity that no scalpel can divide. It isn't thought, it's being. Even in trauma, when pain becomes a voice of doubt or despair, something within you stays still. That presence hears the storm without becoming it. It holds you when thought cannot. So ask yourself, are you the storm of thoughts, or the calm sky holding them? The chatter in your mind, or the one who listens without speaking? The silence beneath the voice, that's you. It always has been. What if everything you see isn't the world as it truly is, but a carefully crafted illusion generated by your brain? From the moment you open your eyes, your senses collect fragments, light, sound, pressure, and transmit them as electrical signals to your brain. But those signals are meaningless until your brain decodes them. That decoding, that's your reality. You don't see the world, you see your brain's best guess of what's out there. Colors don't exist outside your skull. There are only electromagnetic wavelengths. Your brain assigns the label blue or red to help you survive. Sound, just air pressure changes, yet we hear music, voices, emotions. But do they truly exist, or are they elaborate interpretations we've collectively agreed to believe? Dreams prove this further. Your eyes are closed, your body lies still, yet your brain builds entire worlds, cities, people, love, fear, and while dreaming, you're convinced it's all real. So, what separates dreams from waking life? Perhaps only the stability and intensity of sensory input. This is predictive processing. Your brain doesn't just receive, it guesses, it fills in gaps, it creates. The result? A controlled hallucination so precise, so consistent, we call it truth. Even time isn't constant. Your brain edits, smooths, delays, and stitches moments together into a seamless now. But it's an illusion of continuity. So ask yourself, if every moment is filtered, stitched, and rendered within your skull, have you ever truly seen the world? Or only the simulation your mind believes is true? Maybe reality was never out there. Maybe all along, it was only in here, with you. And if that's true, then what you call reality might just be the longest dream you've ever had. What if you're still dreaming? In REM sleep, your brain becomes a master illusionist. Entire lifetimes unfold behind closed eyes. People you've never met feel real. Streets you've never walked seem familiar. Your prefrontal cortex, which filters logic, is dialed down. Meanwhile, emotional and sensory areas spike, flooding you with images that feel solid. But here's what unnerves neuroscientists. During waking life, the brain uses the same mechanisms to stitch together reality. So, how do you know this is any different? Lucid dreamers often discover they can fly, walk through walls, or talk to lost loved ones. Yet, they still feel awake. And people trapped in false awakenings, dreams where they think they've woken, experience full routines, brushing teeth, checking phones, even commuting, only to wake up again, shocked. Now imagine. You feel your feet on the ground, the air on your skin, your thoughts coherent. But so did they. Some theories suggest all consciousness is a virtual construct, an internal simulation guided by prediction. Your brain isn't recording reality, it's guessing it, which means glitches, déjà vu, time slips, looping thoughts, might not be accidents. They could be echoes from deeper layers of consciousness. Your sense of now could be a fiction, stabilized, just long enough to keep you sane. What if this moment is a lucid dream you never exited? What if you never actually woke up? Touch your arm again. Are you sure it's real? Or are you still inside the most convincing illusion your brain ever created, too perfect to question? Maybe the only reason it feels so real is because your mind wants it to. And if this is a dream, who or what is dreaming you? What if the present isn't something you can ever truly hold? Imagine trying to grasp now. By the time you name it, it's already slipped into memory. Neuroscience tells us there's a built-in delay, roughly 80 milliseconds, between what happens and when you become aware of it. Your brain isn't showing you reality, it's showing you a curated echo of the past, cleverly disguised as presence, like watching a live stream with barely enough lag to go unnoticed. Even light plays tricks. The sun you see is 8 minutes old. Every star above you is a fossilized photon memory from light years ago, a ghost of cosmic story arriving late. What you perceive isn't what is, it's what was. Physics confirms this. Einstein proved there's no such thing as a universal now. Time bends. Two people moving differently through space can disagree on what's happening at the same moment. The present, it turns out, is relative, slippery, and personal. Now imagine time as a flickering reel of still images. Your consciousness stitches them together, frame by frame, to fake a continuous movie. But there is no true motion, only your brain smoothing chaos into coherence. We live in the seam between frames, convinced it's solid ground, when it's really a fracture in perception. Even Zen teachings, which urge us to live in the present, face this paradox. What if the present is merely a fabrication, a cognitive compromise between fading past and uncertain future? You're always behind, living just out of sync. And yet, this ghost edge of now is all you ever get. A moment so fragile it dies the instant it's born. And still, we try to build entire lives inside its vanishing breath, hoping the illusion is enough to feel real. What if your thoughts don't belong to you? Not entirely. Imagine sitting alone in complete silence when suddenly a childhood memory appears. You didn't summon it. It surfaced. That's the strange part. Neuroscientists have found that the majority of thoughts emerge from the unconscious, without your control. Your brain runs like a background engine, anticipating danger, replaying scenes, crafting plans, before you even know it. Functional MRI scans show your brain lights up seconds before you feel you've made a decision. So, who's really steering? You're not the author of most thoughts, you're the audience. That song looping in your head? The daydream during work? The irrational fear that strikes without reason? These thoughts arrive uninvited, and yet you identify with them. But are you really the thinker, or just the observer? Meditation teaches this clearly. Sit still long enough, and you'll notice thoughts come and go like clouds. They drift in, stay, leave. You don't control them. You witness them. Some scientists now suggest consciousness may not originate from the brain alone. Penrose and Hameroff propose quantum processes play a role, deeper than neurons. Jung believed in a collective unconscious, a shared mental layer beyond the self. Even mainstream neuroscience shows the brain's default mode network is active during rest, generating a stream of random, often intrusive thoughts. You didn't ask for them, but they arrive, and sometimes they frighten you. Thoughts of harm, doubt, or sadness. Science calls them ego-dystonic. They contradict your values. So, if you didn't choose them, who did? So, the question remains, if you are not your thoughts, then who is watching them pass by? Who, exactly, is the silence beneath the noise? Imagine your thoughts flowing like leaves on a river, drifting, appearing, disappearing. You sit still, yet ideas, fears, memories rush past without invitation. You didn't summon that memory from 10 years ago. You didn't ask for that sudden fear about tomorrow. They arrive unannounced. So, if thoughts move through you, but you don't command them, are they truly yours? Neuroscience suggests that thoughts arise from unconscious brain processes before you become aware of them. Experiments show decision-making sparks in the brain milliseconds before you feel you've decided. Thoughts seem personal because they echo your experiences, your memories. But the act of thinking is not something you fully control. It's something you witness. Consider this. When a random intrusive thought disturbs you, who is the one disturbed? If you were your thoughts, you wouldn't resist them, but you do. You notice them, question them, push them away. You watch them like clouds crossing an open sky. In deep meditation or even moments of crisis, thoughts can dissolve, and yet you remain. Awareness persists without the endless commentary. The real you does not need constant thinking to exist. It simply watches, patient, silent. If ownership of thought were real, you could choose each one, but you can't. Thoughts appear on their own timeline, speaking with voices shaped by memory, biology, and chance. Ownership implies control. Observation admits the truth. So, who are you? The endless current of thought or the riverbed holding it all? If thoughts are visitors, you are the home they pass through. If thoughts are noise, you are the silence they try to fill. Ownership never truly began. Only witnessing. Only you. What if you never chose to exist? Imagine awakening into a body, into a life, into a world you never asked for. Before your first breath, before your first memory, where were you? You don't remember choosing. You don't remember signing up for this experience. One moment, there was nothing, and the next, there was everything. Scientists can trace brain development, measure fetal activity, predict when consciousness might begin to flicker. But there is no scientific moment where you are said to have chosen to emerge. Birth isn't a decision. It's a happening. A cascade of cells multiplying, forming neurons, stitching together a mind that opens its eyes without consent. Consider that consciousness itself may just be a side effect, a byproduct of complexity, arising when enough neurons fire together. You didn't will your brain into existence. It assembled itself from instinct, chemistry, and chance. Life didn't ask you if you were ready. It simply unfolded. And what about free will, the cherished illusion we cling to? Neuroscientific studies show that your brain makes decisions milliseconds before you're even aware of them. A silent election held without your permission, meaning you act first and rationalize afterward. So, did you choose to be? Or were you thrown into existence, tossed into a cosmic current that began long before you? Maybe life isn't something you chose, but something you were thrust into, a puzzle you were solving without ever agreeing to play. And yet, here you are, breathing, thinking, hoping, loving, suffering. You never chose the beginning, but perhaps in every decision you make now, you reclaim a fragment of choice. Maybe the only real choice you'll ever have is what you do with the existence you never asked for. What if who you are isn't what you think? Imagine peeling away everything you call yourself. Your name? It's just a sound someone gave you. Your body? Cells replace themselves constantly. You're physically not the same person you were 7 years ago. Your memories? Fragile, rewritten each time you recall them, colored by emotion, distorted by time. Neuroscience reveals that memory isn't a playback of events. It's a reconstruction, a fragile narrative stitched from fragments, which means your past is not as stable as you believe. It's a story you keep rewriting without knowing. Now imagine, if your memories are unstable, your body is temporary, and your name is an echo, what's left? Some philosophers argue identity isn't a thing at all, but a process, a flowing river, not a fixed stone. In Buddhism, the self is seen as an illusion, a temporary collection of thoughts and sensations mistaken for permanence. Modern science echoes this, showing that personality shifts, beliefs evolve, even core values can mutate after trauma, experience, or time. Suppose you lose all memory but keep your body. Are you still you? Suppose you change your body but keep your mind. What about then? Suppose you change your memories but feel the same heartbeat. What's real? None of the pieces on their own define you. Maybe identity lives in the invisible space, the tension, the pull, the strange in-between, the way your memories feel, the weight of your name when someone speaks it, the phantom sensation of ownership over a body that never truly stays yours. What if identity is not something you have, but something you are becoming every second, stitched moment by a mind desperate to feel whole? What if you're not the memories, not the body, not the name, but the silent awareness holding them together, only noticed when everything else falls away? What if your entire story isn't true, but simply the best fiction you've ever believed? Imagine every memory, every certainty, every proud moment you cling to is nothing more than a carefully edited myth, repeated so often it became indistinguishable from truth. Neuroscience shows that memory isn't a recording, it's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you're not replaying the original, you're rewriting it, layering in new emotions, imagined details, distortions you barely notice but deeply trust. Studies reveal that with enough repetition, even false memories feel more real than facts. Your brain isn't built for accuracy, it's built for survival, for coherence, for crafting a self you can live with. It edits, smooths, erases, invents, all to protect your fragile sense of identity. Your past might not be a series of facts at all, but a collection of well-worn lies stitched together with hope, fear, longing, and necessity. Imagine telling yourself the same comforting story every day until even the gaps and contradictions feel familiar. Doubt fades. The myth calcifies. It hardens into armor. And inside that armor, you feel safe. But maybe you're trapped without even realizing it. What if the person you think you are is just a character you've been rehearsing for so long, you forgot you're still improvising? Every triumph, every regret, every identity you wear like a badge, just chapters written by a narrator too desperate for meaning to admit he never knew the ending, and still doesn't. And yet, without that story, what would you be? An ocean with no shore, a question with no answer. Maybe the real you isn't the story you keep telling, but the silence underneath it all, waiting, always waiting, to remember something older than memory, something truer than words. What if every identity you wear is just a mask? Imagine the roles you play, the child, the student, the lover, the worker. Each one feels real while you live it, but over time they shift, fade, transform. You adapt to new expectations, new environments, new fears. So where is the unchanging you beneath all these shifting roles? Psychology suggests there may not be a solid core self at all. The self is fluid, constructed by memory, context, and need. Studies show how easily people alter behavior based on surroundings. The Stanford prison experiment revealed how quickly ordinary people transformed into cruel guards or passive prisoners. Your face to your family differs from your face to strangers, to friends, to lovers. Are they all equally true? Or are they performances sculpted to survive? Neuroscience hints that the self is just a story, a fragile narrative woven by the brain to tie scattered experiences into something coherent. Identity is not hardwired. Damage certain areas of the brain and entire pieces of personality, beliefs, fears, even love, can vanish. Are you still you without your memories, without your language, without your past? Ancient philosophies warned of this illusion. Buddhism teaches anatta, no permanent self. You are like a river, always flowing, never the same twice. Even modern physics suggests that at fundamental levels, form is temporary. You are a moving pattern, not a solid object. So, if you strip away every role, every attachment, every memory, what remains? Perhaps only awareness itself, the quiet, formless witness beneath every mask. The mask you call me is not a lie, but it was never meant to be permanent. Watch yourself shift over years, over minutes. So the real question is not what masks you wear, but who, if anyone, is wearing them at all. Imagine sitting completely alone, no mirrors, no cameras, no reflections, and yet you feel it. That invisible gaze, a presence, watching not your body, but something deeper. Who sees behind you when no one is there? Who listens when your mind goes quiet, when even your breath feels like an echo? Neuroscience reveals something strange. Even in isolation, the human brain generates signals as if being observed. It's called the predator detection system, an ancient alarm wired into our survival instincts. You feel watched because long ago, sensing unseen danger meant the difference between life and death. And though predators are rare today, the feeling never left. It lingers. It waits. But is it only instinct, or something deeper? Consider consciousness, the part of you aware that you are aware. It's like a hall of mirrors, each reflection aware of being reflected. When you sit in real silence, when thought dissolves, something remains. A sense of being noticed, a gaze without eyes, awareness watching awareness. In deep meditation, monks report the sensation of being observed, not by gods, not by phantoms, but by something vast, raw, infinite. It's not external. It feels woven into existence itself. It feels like remembering something you forgot you were. If you close your eyes now and listen, not for sounds, but for presence, you might sense it too, not fear, not imagination, just the unblinking gaze of awareness itself, timeless and still. So ask yourself, when you believe you're alone, who is still watching? Who sees the breath you cannot see? Who listens to the silence you thought was yours alone? Maybe it's just you. Or maybe you are two things at once, the lived experience and the ancient witness that has always been watching. What if you're not as new as you think? Imagine living a day, a feeling, a thought, and calling it fresh. But beneath the surface, something repeats, a pattern, a loop. Emotions dressed in different clothes, thoughts wearing new masks, but the rhythm stays the same. You get angry, but isn't it the same shape of rage from a decade ago? You fall in love, but don't you feel the same butterflies, the same fear of loss, the same ache? These aren't new events, they're echoes. Neural pathways formed years ago that still fire today, pretending to be spontaneous. Old emotions reheated by new moments. In neuroscience, we call it the default mode network, the part of your brain active when you're not doing anything. It's the space where memory replays, the self reflects, the past loops forward. This is where your emotional patterns reside. It's not the event that matters. It's how your brain interprets it, over and over, like grooves worn into vinyl. Your brain learns by repetition. Habits aren't just physical. They're emotional, psychological, spiritual. You may change cities, careers, even names, but inside, the story you tell yourself might still be the same. I'm not enough. I'll be abandoned. I must succeed. Loops pretending to be truth. What if your identity isn't solid, but just a playlist on repeat? What if who you think you are is just what you keep feeling over and over? Not because it's real, but because it's familiar, comfortable pain, known joy. So the question isn't what you feel, it's what you feel again. Which echoes still control you? And what will it take to break the loop, to finally experience a feeling not rooted in memory, but in freedom? Maybe healing isn't becoming someone new, but stopping the old echoes from speaking louder than now. What if you're not alone, not in the room, but in your experience of being? Imagine this. Every step you take, every breath you draw, is not just happening inside you, but being noticed by something deeper. Not a god, not a person, but by existence itself. Physics already tells us that observation changes reality. The double-slit experiment proves that particles act differently when watched. Somehow consciousness alters the outcome. But what if it's not just you observing the universe? What if the universe is observing you? Some believe awareness isn't something you possess. It's something you're plugged into. That every conscious act tunes a deeper frequency, like a lens through which existence views itself. Mystics call it the witness. Physicists call it decoherence. Either way, your awareness shapes what is. When you look at the stars, they are not just light from dead suns. They're stories that need your eyes to exist as stories. If no one sees it, is it real? Or does reality wait for someone to bring it into focus? Now, imagine your life isn't random. It's a mirror. Every pattern, every echo, every uncanny timing might be existence tapping you on the shoulder, whispering, I see you. Maybe you're not being judged. Maybe you're being awakened. That strange déjà vu, that gut feeling, that moment when time stands still, not glitches, but signals. Existence watching from the shadows of your mind, waiting for you to notice. What if awareness is not a sense, but a signal? A handshake between mind and matter? What if reality is not passive but conscious in itself, waiting for your gaze, needing your witness? What if you aren't real, not in the way you think, but imagined? Not by a god or machine, but by a sleeper lost in a dream so deep it gave birth to you. Imagine your entire life, your thoughts, your sensations, your pain, just the side effects of someone else's unconscious narrative. Every neuron firing in your head isn't your own. It's part of the dreamer's storyline. Your memories? Maybe they never happened. Just fragments of a deeper mind, stitching temporary truths into a flickering illusion. Neuroscience shows there's no single command center in the brain, no one place where you reside. Consciousness emerges from billions of signals dancing together in synchronized patterns. The self is a construction, useful, persistent, but ultimately fragile, a symbolic interface. Like a character in a video game, aware only of its window, but blind to the engine running it. Could your awareness just be a phantom reflection, an echo of someone else's dream logic? The simulation hypothesis suggests that Advanced civilizations could run countless simulated realities, indistinguishable from truth. Statistically, being in the original universe may be the least likely outcome. But what if this simulation isn't digital? What if it's mental? A byproduct of a higher consciousness, one that dreams not in images but in entire existences? When you dream, entire universes rise and fall inside you. You've built lives in seconds, loved people who never existed, woken up weeping for fates you never lived. Now ask, what if your waking life is just that, for someone else? Every fear, every question, every flicker of doubt, that's the dreamer stirring. And if they wake up, your entire reality disappears like breath on glass. What if you are nothing more and nothing less than a brief arrangement of cosmic dust? Imagine every atom in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen in your lungs. All were born in the cores of ancient stars, billions of years ago. You are, quite literally, made of stardust. But your body is just matter, swirling for a time. What holds it together into something that feels like a person? Memory, experience, pattern. Neuroscience shows that identity is not a thing, but a process, a constant, fragile weaving of electrical signals and chemical bonds. Your memories shape your sense of self, but even they are unreliable, changing each time you recall them. So what then persists? Quantum physics suggests that at the smallest scales, particles don't even have fixed positions until observed. Reality is relational, existing through connection, and so are you. Without the relationships between your atoms, between your thoughts, between you and the world, you would dissolve. Philosophers like Heraclitus said it first. You are a river, not a rock. Ever-changing, never the same twice. Modern science agrees. Cells die, are replaced. Memories shift. Emotions flicker. Yet somehow, the pattern remains recognizable, at least for a while. Maybe what holds you together isn't anything solid at all. Maybe it's the story you keep telling. A narrative stitched from fleeting moments, tiny decisions, whispered hopes. Stardust arranged for a heartbeat of time into something that can wonder about itself. So the question is not what you are made of, but how you continue to become, moment after moment, against the pull of entropy. What holds you together is not mass or memory, but meaning. What if everything you are is just dust and memory? Imagine your body, your very essence, formed from the same elements that once exploded in stars, scattered across galaxies. Your skin, your bones, your blood, all made from the same stardust that once burned brightly in the hearts of long-dead suns. And your mind, those thoughts, those memories, that quiet voice you hear in the silence, what if they're simply echoes, shaped by forces older than time itself? Scientists tell us that the atoms composing your body were forged in the chaotic depths of supernovas, traveling across the void until they found their way to you. But if your body is stardust and your mind is memory, what is it that holds it all together? What is the force that binds this collection of dust and thought, shaping them into the person you see in the mirror every day? Is it consciousness? Is it the fragile threads of time that twist through your life, giving it direction? Or is it something more, something we haven't yet understood? Think about the way you experience the world, the feelings of love, joy, pain. These aren't just chemical reactions or electrical impulses. They are memories stored in your cells, echoes of lives lived in parallel, reverberating across time and space. You are more than the sum of your parts. You are a complex orchestra, played by unseen hands, a song written in the language of stars. But what if it's more than that? What if, in this vast cosmos, there's something intrinsic, something outside of time and space, that makes you matter? A force that is not simply the physics of matter or the biology of life, but something woven into the very fabric of existence, allowing you to feel, to dream, to wonder about your place in the universe. What holds you together, in the end, is not just memory or stardust, but something much more profound, a spark that ignites the very essence of who you are. What if the words you speak were never truly yours? Imagine opening your mouth to say something heartfelt, something original, and realizing the script was written long before you. Every opinion, every belief, every fear you carry, how many were planted by parents, by teachers, by culture? How many are echoes of voices you forgot you heard? Language is learned, not invented. You didn't create the words you use to describe the world. You inherited them. You absorbed definitions, values, judgments, all before you knew you could question them. Neural circuits built themselves from what you were told, not from what you discovered. By the time you could think for yourself, the foundation was already set, carved deep and quiet. Psychologists call it introjection, the unconscious adoption of outside ideas as your own. Society hands you a script. Success looks like this. Love feels like that. Fear these things. Chase those dreams. Wear these masks. Play these roles. You believe you're choosing. But are you? Consider how few beliefs you've built from raw experience. How often you defend ideas passed down, not born within you. Your deepest convictions may be borrowed costumes stitched from ancient fabrics. You may feel anger, pride, ambition, but whose emotions are you wearing? What if your anger isn't truly yours, but a passed-down defense? What if your ambitions are echoes of someone else's survival strategies? What if the dreams you chase were planted by voices that no longer even exist? So, the question isn't what you believe, it's who you're quoting when you say you believe it. Which words were planted, which feelings were inherited, and how much of you is truly yours? Maybe real freedom isn't adding new lines to the script, but daring to tear it up, and speaking something so raw, so real, it has no author but you. What if this isn't the first time you're hearing these words? Imagine time not as a straight line, but a loop, a circle so perfect that every thought you have, every breath you take, has already happened before, maybe 1,000 times, maybe forever. Physicists exploring the concept of closed time-like curves suggest that under certain conditions, space-time could fold back onto itself, allowing events to repeat endlessly. If the universe permits loops in the deepest fabric of reality, how would you even know? You wake up, you stretch, you feel déjà vu, that eerie flicker of familiarity you can't explain. Scientists call it a memory glitch. But what if it's a memory leak from the last time you lived this exact day? Imagine reliving your triumphs, your mistakes, your losses, endlessly cycling through the same heartbeat of existence. Every choice you make feeling new, but already carved in the grooves of a time-worn loop. The same joys, the same regrets echoing into themselves forever. Now ask yourself, if time were looping right now, how would you notice? Would the subtle clues be the dreams that predict tomorrow? The instincts that save you without reason? The unshakable feeling that you've been here before, said this before, loved and lost before? Maybe there's no forward, no backward. Just now, repeat it until you awaken enough to see the seams. Maybe the key isn't fighting the cycle, but recognizing it. Maybe breaking the loop isn't about changing the past, but about finally noticing you're trapped inside it. What if this isn't the first time you've heard this question? What if you're reading these words again and again and again, and only now something inside you is starting to remember? Maybe the first step out of the loop is realizing you were never moving at all. What if freedom is just the most beautiful lie you've ever believed? Imagine standing at a crossroads, feeling the weight of choice pressing against you. You believe you're deciding, but what if the decision was already made long before you arrived? Neuroscience shows that the brain initiates decisions milliseconds before you become conscious of them. By the time you think you've chosen, your neurons have already fired, your path already shaped. Your past scripts you in ways too subtle to see. Childhood experiences, traumas, victories, failures, each carving grooves into the neural landscape you call preference. Each moment you thought you controlled was nudged, pulled, whispered into by a million unseen memories. When you reach for an idea, an action, a love, a hatred, you're drawing from a deep well you didn't dig. Even your rebellion, even your resistance, was set into motion by forces older than your awareness. Imagine your life as a river, winding across a vast unseen landscape. Every thought, every choice, every dream is a current shaped by mountains you never climbed and rains you never felt. You can splash and twist within the flow, but can you ever truly leave its course? Free will feels real because consciousness stitches a story afterward, like a lawyer defending a verdict. You explain your choices as if they sprang pure from your soul, but maybe you're just narrating inevitability. Studies in psychology, neuroscience, and quantum physics hint that determinism rules deeper than we dare to admit. Every molecule, every atom, every synapse following paths laid down by cosmic laws older than stars. If your mind is made of atoms, and atoms obey these laws, then what part of you can rebel against the universe? And yet, knowing this, you still reach and dream. Maybe freedom isn't about escaping causality at all. Maybe true freedom is realizing you are not the river's prisoner. You are the river's dream. What if you are a mystery even to yourself? Imagine standing before a mirror, searching your own eyes, wondering who you will become. You plan, you predict, you dream, but somehow, life still surprises you. Neuroscience shows that much of human behavior is driven by unconscious processes. You act, then justify the action afterward. The conscious mind lags behind reality, narrating events it barely controls. Psychologists like Daniel Kahneman have proven that humans are poor predictors of their own emotions and decisions. You think you know how you'll feel, how you'll react. But when the moment comes, you are often a stranger to your own expectations. Your brain runs on heuristics, shortcuts carved by survival, not foresight. So, are you really steering, or just observing yourself unfold? Developmental biology adds another layer. You are not a static creature. Cells die, regenerate, new connections form in your brain even as you sleep. Epigenetics shows that genes themselves can be switched on or off by environment and experience. Who you are today is different, biologically and mentally, from who you were a year ago. Ancient philosophers warned against clinging to a fixed identity. Heraclitus wrote, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." You are the river, flowing, unpredictable, alive. And quantum physics whispers the same. Uncertainty is woven into the fabric of existence itself. Maybe you can't predict yourself because prediction assumes a stable object, and you are not an object. You are a process, a becoming. Every breath, every thought, every heartbeat reshapes you. The reflection you see is already outdated. So the question isn't whether you can predict yourself, but whether you can keep up with who you are becoming. Here's your finalized voiceover script based on your latest prompt. It contains 1713 characters, fitting perfectly within your 1700-2000 character range. Imagine love existing without time. No beginnings, no endings, just an endless presence, unmoved by decay, untouched by memory. Imagine if love didn't grow or fade, but simply was, stretching infinitely beyond every heartbeat you ever counted, beyond every goodbye you ever whispered. Science ties love to biology. Neurochemicals like oxytocin and dopamine, time-bound and vulnerable to erosion. We talk about love blossoming, deepening, decaying, as if it were a season passing through us. But what if that cycle belongs only to the body, not the essence? What if real love is not an event, not a process, but a constant, like gravity or light, only glimpsed through the fog of time? Think about someone you lost years ago. The person is gone, the stories blur, the details fade, and yet, the love? When you dare to touch it again, it feels untouched by the years. It doesn't weaken. It doesn't ask for proof. It simply is. Quantum entanglement shows us that particles separated by light years still affect each other instantly, as if space and time have no authority over them. What if love is a kind of entanglement too? Not a bond we forge, but a thread that was always there, connecting souls before bodies even existed. If love can't decay, can it ever truly begin? Or has it always waited, silent, unchanging, written into the deep architecture of existence itself? Maybe love isn't something we create. Maybe it's the one thing that reveals itself when we finally stop measuring moments and surrender to the endless. So ask yourself, what is love without time? Not a fire that burns out, not a flower that dies, but an ocean, endless, patient, all-encompassing, waiting, whether you dive into it or not. What if you're not the only one walking through your mind? Imagine moving through your thoughts, your choices, your dreams, and behind you, silent figures follow. Memories. Ghosts of moments long past. They do not speak, yet they shape every step you take without needing a single word. You remember what hurt you. You remember what lifted you. But most of all, you remember without realizing it. Silent scripts etched into your brain, guiding your reactions, your fears, your hopes. You believe you're making choices freely. But what if those choices are shaped by echoes from years ago? Wounds you forgot you had. Victories you stopped celebrating. Trauma leaves footprints that never wash away. Joy leaves handprints on the walls. Every betrayal, every promise broken, every late-night conversation that cracked something open inside you, they walk behind you still. Neuroscience shows that memory isn't static. Every time you recall something, you rewrite it slightly. Memories aren't history. They're living passengers, evolving, adapting, influencing. Some memories are guardians, some are saboteurs. Without speaking, they steer your hand when you hesitate. They close your heart when you could have opened it. They make you run when you should have stayed. They plant fear when you need courage. And you don't even realize it's them whispering at the crossroads. Who walks your mind when you face fear? When you reach for love? When you stand on the edge of change? You think you are alone. But you are never alone. The people you've lost, the voices you've absorbed, the scars you've hidden, they walk with you, shaping the roads you see and the ones you never dare to take. Maybe growth isn't about silencing the echoes. Maybe it's about turning around, meeting them eye to eye, and finally choosing which ones deserve to walk with you and which you are strong enough to leave behind. What if the loudest parts of you are the ones you never say? Imagine this. Every room you walk into carries two versions of you, the one who speaks and the one who stays silent. That quiet tension, the words swallowed back, the truths too heavy to say aloud. They don't vanish. They hang in the air, woven into the pauses between sentences, echoing in the weight of your glances. Psychologists suggest that suppressed emotions aren't erased. They're stored, subtly shaping your behavior, your health, your dreams. What you silence becomes part of your atmosphere, a second language that others read without realizing. You think you're hiding your fear, your rage, your heartbreak. But the body speaks even when the mouth is closed. Think about it. How often have you laughed when you wanted to cry? Stayed silent when you burned to speak? Smiled while your mind screamed? Those unsaid parts of you become phantom limbs. You can't see them, but you feel their presence, aching, shaping how you move through the world. Trauma therapists call it implicit memory, the body storing what the mind refuses to carry. Now imagine, every word you didn't say, every feeling you buried, every part of yourself you told to be quiet, still lives in the spaces you inhabit. Unspoken anger humming in your jaw, unacknowledged love trembling in your hands, hidden sorrow pooling behind your eyes. You become a collage of the seen and unseen, a visible ghost of invisible stories. Maybe silence isn't absence. Maybe it's presence amplified. A presence so deep that it bleeds into every interaction, every decision, every missed chance to be truly known. What if the parts you silence never leave the room? What if they're standing right behind you, still waiting for you to turn around and finally listen? What if the path you think you're walking was never really yours? Imagine believing you were steering, choosing, aiming for some grand destination, but underneath it all, you're simply drifting. Neuroscience reveals that most decisions are made unconsciously, bubbling up from depths you cannot see. You explain your actions afterward, convincing yourself you were always in control. But maybe you're just riding invisible currents set in motion long before you could resist them, carried without even realizing it. Look closer. The dreams you chase, were they planted? The fears you avoid, were they chosen? Culture, biology, trauma, love, all forces shaping the riverbed beneath your feet. Every decision might be a ripple from a past you never consciously touched, an echo of choices made by 1,000 silent hands. What feels like purpose could just be gravity, pulling you across a landscape shaped by forces deeper than your mind can map. Imagine a leaf floating down a river. It twists, turns, even spins in circles, seeming to dance by its own will. But from above, it's clear. The river carries it. Maybe your life feels directional because you're so close to the surface you can't see the powerful currents guiding you. Maybe certainty is just a trick of proximity, a comfortable illusion stitched by survival instincts. Studies show that people fabricate reasons for choices they never truly made. Your mind craves coherence, invents cause and effect to hide the chaos. You think you are the navigator, but you might be the passenger, interpreting turbulence as your own command. And yet, even a drifting leaf sees sunsets, brushes against forgotten shores, and rides the wildness of the water. Maybe meaning isn't about resisting the current. Maybe it's found in surrendering to it, trusting that even without a map, wonder still waits downstream. What if the very thing you fear most is where your truth is hiding? Imagine the moments you flinch away from a memory, a decision, a possibility. The reflex is ancient. Fear evolved to protect you. But protection is not the same as wisdom. Sometimes what you avoid most fiercely holds the exact revelation you need to confront. Neuroscience shows that fear responses activate faster than conscious thought. The amygdala fires in milliseconds, preparing your body to fight, flee, or freeze. But in modern life, the threats are rarely physical. They are emotional, existential, failure, rejection, loss. Your brain reacts to these with the same urgency as a predator's shadow. Psychology calls this avoidance behavior. By steering clear of discomfort, you reinforce fear's power. The more you avoid, the bigger the monster becomes. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches the opposite: exposure. Step closer to what terrifies you, and you find it shrinking. What seemed unbearable becomes understandable. Growth hides behind the door you refuse to open. Philosophy echoes the same warning. Nietzsche said, "What you fear most is often where your greatest treasure lies." Jung believed the shadow, the parts of yourself you deny, holds the key to transformation. Facing it isn't easy. It burns, it wounds, but it also heals. Even at a cellular level, adaptation only happens under stress. Muscles tear to grow, immune systems strengthen through exposure. Life itself requires friction. Comfort is not where evolution happens. So ask yourself, what do you avoid? Which memory? Which dream? Which truth do you fear to name? Because sometimes what you fear is not your enemy. It's the final gate you must walk through to become who you were meant to be. Imagine standing before a mirror. You see the lines on your face, the curve of your mouth, the familiar gaze staring back. But is that really you? The mirror reflects the skin, the hair, the surface. It doesn't show the nights you survived, the heartbreaks you endured, the silent wars fought behind your eyes. Science tells us that mirrors simply bounce light back to us, creating an image shaped by physics, not by meaning. What you see is not your essence, but your outline, a reflection with no memory, no soul, no understanding of the weight it tries to capture. Think about the burdens you carry, the regrets too heavy to name, the hopes you buried to survive, the versions of yourself that died quietly along the way. None of these are visible in glass. Mirrors cannot reveal them. They aren't built for truth. They are built for surfaces. Neurologically, we recognize ourselves in reflections because of mirror neurons, structures that help us understand others, mimic expressions, survive social worlds. But these neurons weren't designed to reveal depth. They are tricks of survival, not windows into the soul. If you want to see your truth, you can't look in glass. You have to look into memory, into the stories you've lived and tried to forget, into the emotions that resurface without warning. Your truth is written not on your face, but across the unseen landscapes of your being. So ask yourself, what really reflects your truth? Not the mirror, not the photographs, but the quiet strength that carried you through the storms, the ache behind a forced smile, the dreams you still protect when no one is watching. Mirrors show your face, but only you can see the weight behind your eyes. What if chaos is more than just the absence of order? What if it's the comfort you never realized you were searching for? Imagine chasing storms, running toward the sound of thunder, the chaos of wind and fire, because silence feels like a wound too deep to face. Some people are drawn to the tempest, not because they love the storm, but because they are familiar with the pain it carries. Peace feels like a lie when you've been battered by the turbulence of your own thoughts, your own history. For some, the stillness of calm isn't a balm. It's an absence, an empty space that echoes too loudly. The chaos of the world mirrors the chaos inside, the emotions that have been buried, the memories that refuse to rest. Maybe, like the storm, you've learned to exist with the wildness, to breathe with the noise, because stillness has too much room for things you'd rather forget. It's easier to drown in the roar of life than to face the silence within. Think about the times when life has been too still, too quiet. Maybe it wasn't peace that terrified you. It was the vulnerability of being left alone with your own thoughts, your own wounds. The quiet doesn't mask pain. It amplifies it. In the storm, there's distraction, there's noise, there's movement. There's a sense of control, even if it's fleeting, even if it's an illusion. In the stillness, there's only you, and the pain that has been with you longer than you care to admit. What if the chaos isn't your enemy? What if it's your shield, your comfort, your way of masking the quiet, hidden parts of yourself? You chase the storm not because you love it, but because it's the only place you've ever felt alive. The only place where you don't have to confront the stillness inside. What if the real mystery isn't light or dark, but the space where they cancel each other out? Imagine a point where every force pulling you forward is matched by an equal one pulling you back. You are not soaring. You are not falling. You are suspended, weightless, in between. Physics calls it equilibrium, a state so precarious that the smallest nudge can tip everything. But maybe equilibrium isn't just mechanical. Maybe it's spiritual, emotional, existential. Between every yes and no, there's a breath. Between every action and reaction, a silence. Between light and dark, a seam of pure potential. Scientists say life itself arises from disequilibrium. A perfect balance would mean stasis, death. Yet, total imbalance leads to chaos. So, existence dances on the knife's edge, birthing galaxies, storms, thoughts, dreams, just by leaning slightly off-center. And maybe so do you. Think about your moments of indecision, the times you couldn't tell if you were in love or terrified, hopeful or broken. Those moments weren't empty, they were charged, alive, balanced perfectly between worlds, refusing to collapse into one or the other. What hides there, in that stillness? Some ancient philosophies call it the void, the fertile nothing where creation begins. Quantum physicists call it the superposition, where particles are not this or that, but both, and neither until observed. Maybe you, too, are more than the sum of opposites. Maybe the truest version of you isn't when you choose a side, but when you dare to hover, trembling, between all possible selves. What if you are not light, not dark, but the silent electric thread strung impossibly between them, holding the tension, hiding the secret, breathing the unseen into being? What if you are nothing more than a collection of memories pretending to be a self? Imagine waking up with every memory wiped clean, no name, no face, no history to cling to. Would you still recognize the feeling of being you? Neuroscience tells us that memory isn't just something we have, it's the framework for identity itself. Strip it away, and what remains might not be a person, but an empty vessel searching for an anchor it cannot name. Studies on amnesia patients reveal that when memory erodes, personality shifts in strange, unpredictable ways. Preferences change. Even love, once fierce and undeniable, can vanish like mist at sunrise. Without memory, the web of stories you tell about who you are unravels strand by fragile strand. You are not some timeless essence wearing memories like clothes. You are built by them, rebuilt and rewritten every day you exist. Imagine your mind as a fragile library, its shelves lined with books constantly edited by unseen hands. Each event you recall slightly rewrites the book. Some chapters grow brighter with retelling, others rot in silence. Over time, false memories creep in, real ones fade, and yet the self clings desperately to whatever remains, calling it truth. You trust your story because it's all you have. But what if it's paper thin, shifting like sand beneath your feet? Experiments show that even disrupting simple sensory memories can alter behavior, emotion, belief. If your memories can be shaped without your knowing, if the past itself can be rewritten invisibly, can you truly claim to own yourself? And yet, even without memory, something stirs. Infants with no stories yet written still feel fear, still seek comfort, still reach for connection. Maybe the true self isn't the archive, it's the reaching. Maybe you are not your memories at all, but the raw, aching will to exist even when every story is stripped away. What if you are never truly free, but anchored by threads you cannot see? Imagine standing perfectly still, yet feeling the pull of invisible forces. Memories, promises, fears, hopes. Even when your body is motionless, your mind is not. It tugs against 1,000 unseen ties. What are you tethered to? Neuroscience suggests your brain is a prediction engine, constantly rehearsing futures, reworking past mistakes. The default mode network activates in quiet moments, flooding your mind with thoughts of relationships, ambitions, regrets. You are physically here, but psychologically scattered across times and places you cannot touch. Attachment theory in psychology shows how deeply early bonds shape your adult life. You anchor to people, identities, outcomes. Even the things you think you've let go of often leave emotional scars, tethers wrapped around your choices. Trauma especially binds tightly, forging invisible contracts that echo through every step forward. Philosophers like Sartre and Camus spoke of the absurdity of freedom, the crushing weight of infinite choice countered by the deep need for meaning. You long to fly, but you also build nests from memories, beliefs, fears. Even physics speaks of unseen forces. Gravity binding galaxies, quantum entanglement linking particles across vast distances. So too are you entangled, with places, people, possibilities you can neither fully hold nor fully abandon. The question is not whether you are tethered. You are. The question is, which threads nourish you and which ones quietly strangle you? To see them clearly is the first step. To choose them consciously is the next. Because you are not free when you deny your tethers. You are free when you understand them. Imagine standing before two doors. One glows with warmth, safety, comfort, familiar lies whispered like lullabies. The other door is cold, harsh, and silent. It promises truth, but no guarantee of peace. Which would you open? And could you live with the choice? Science shows that the brain is wired for survival, not truth. Cognitive biases tilt perception towards safety, familiarity, and coherence. We believe what helps us sleep at night, not necessarily what reflects reality. The shadows may lie, but they cradle you in warmth. They whisper, stay here, stay blind, stay safe. To seek truth is to tear away those blankets. It's to walk naked into an uncertain storm, to confront realities that don't bend to your comfort. It demands that you sacrifice more than illusions. It demands pieces of yourself, comfort, belonging, identity. The mind resists. It screams. It builds myths to protect itself. And most people listen. Think about the hard truths you once resisted, the love you thought would last forever, the betrayal you never wanted to see, the moment you realized life doesn't reward goodness. Those truths carved you open. They shattered the safe stories you clung to, but they also freed you. They stripped away illusions that were never truly yours. Philosophers warn that truth is not a destination, but a breaking, a constant erosion of certainty. Every truth you grasp eventually demands you to surrender it for a deeper one. Safety is static. Truth is alive, burning, devouring, rebirthing. So ask yourself, what would you sacrifice? Your illusions of safety? The soft prisons built from fear? Or would you cling to the shadows because they are warm, even as they slowly suffocate you? Maybe the real question isn't whether truth is worth the cost. Maybe it's whether you're willing to spend your one life asleep or awaken, whatever it demands. What if the walls you built weren't just for protection, but for hiding? Imagine every hurt, every betrayal, every tiny fracture in your trust, stacking one brick at a time. You told yourself it was safety. You told yourself it was strength. But somewhere along the way, the walls got taller, thicker, and they stopped just keeping the pain out. They started keeping you in. At first, it makes sense. Boundaries are survival. You needed shields to endure, but walls don't just block pain. They block light. They block laughter. They block connection. They block the hands that reach out for you with something more than harm. Until one day, the walls don't just protect you, they isolate you. Neuroscience tells us that trauma hardwires the brain for defense. When enough harm comes, the amygdala, the fear center, becomes hyperactive. You scan for threats even where there are none. You prepare for betrayal before love can even arrive. So you build. You armor up. You retreat behind cynicism, humor, perfectionism, anger. You tell yourself you're being realistic. You tell yourself vulnerability is weakness. But deep down, maybe it's fear disguised as wisdom, loneliness disguised as strength. What if the person you've been trying to protect isn't under attack anymore? What if you're guarding an old version of yourself who needed saving, but now you're just keeping others from knowing the real you? Ask yourself, who are you when no one is watching? Who would you be if you didn't have to brace for impact every time you cared too much? Maybe healing isn't tearing the walls down overnight. Maybe it's opening a single window first, letting light touch the places you forgot were still alive. Maybe it's learning that the right people aren't trying to break in. They're just knocking, waiting patiently, hoping you'll let them see you, not the armor you thought you needed to survive. What if your busy life isn't a sign of fullness, but a desperate attempt to outrun emptiness? Imagine it. Every calendar entry, every notification, every rush from one task to another, not filling you, but covering something you're afraid to face. Psychologists call it distraction compensation, the tendency to overload ourselves to drown out the whisper of deeper needs unmet. You wake up, already scrolling. You work, plan, organize, reply. At night, you collapse, exhausted, but still strangely hollow. The mind tells you that busy means meaningful, but the heart knows better. That gnawing ache, that's not laziness. It's a signal, pulsing beneath the noise. Neurologists studying addiction patterns find that even minor compulsions, constant checking, binge watching, endless scrolling, activate the same brain circuits that seek to avoid pain, fear, loneliness. We aren't chasing joy. We're dodging silence, because silence asks, who are you when you're not performing? Not producing, not proving? Imagine standing still. No music, no deadlines, no applause, just you, breathing into the void you've spent years building walls against. What rises inside that empty space? Anxiety? Grief? A hunger for something you can't name? Maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's truth cracking through. Maybe the real fullness isn't found in how much you do, but in how much you can stand to feel. Maybe emptiness isn't a failure, but an invitation. A hollowed space waiting to be honored, not ignored. A space where your truest voice, long buried under noise, finally begins to whisper back. What if you're not supposed to fill every moment? What if true fullness means finally sitting with the ache and letting it teach you who you really are? What if everything you believe about yourself is just the loudest voice you've been trained to hear? Imagine the world stripped of all noise, no distractions, no music, no endless flood of demands, only silence. In that void, what rises to meet you? In deep silence, studies show, the brain does not go quiet. It grows louder. Internal dialogues swell. Suppressed fears claw back. Forgotten dreams awaken. Without the shield of external noise, you are forced to hear the raw machinery of your mind, and it may not speak with your voice. Neuroscience reveals that the brain's default mode network, the system for internal thought, self-reflection, and memory, becomes hyperactive in silence. Memories reassemble, old wounds reopen. Hopes you buried claw their way into awareness. The voice you hear in that silence is not random. It's the tangled sum of every influence, every scar, every commandment etched into your mind before you even knew you could resist. Are you really the author of that voice, or just its keeper? Imagine sitting in perfect stillness and realizing most of your thoughts aren't yours at all. They are echoes of parents warning, teachers correcting, crowds judging. They are stitched into your nervous system so tightly you mistake them for instinct. You think you are thinking, but maybe you are only remembering. You believe you are choosing, but maybe you are only replaying a script written long ago. True silence is rare because it is unbearable. Deprived of distraction, we are left with ourselves, raw, unfiltered, exposed. In total quiet, the loudest voice is often the one we've spent a lifetime trying to silence, and it demands answers. Who built your mind? Whose dreams are you still serving? And if you stripped it all away, if you ripped out every borrowed word, what voice, if any, would be left to speak? Imagine your soul as a vessel, cracked, worn, but still standing. No matter how tightly you seal it, something leaks through. An emotion, a memory, a weight you thought you buried years ago. You push it down, silence it, drown it under distractions. Yet it returns, unchanged, untouched by time. Neuroscience shows that emotional memories are stored differently than factual ones. They etch deeper grooves into the brain, resurfacing involuntarily, triggered by smells, sights, forgotten whispers. You cannot command them to stay silent. They live below thought, closer to the marrow of who you are. Think about it. That sudden wave of grief at a song you haven't heard in years. The anger that ignites too quickly. The ache that doesn't fit the moment, rising like a tide against your will. These emotions are not accidents. They are reminders. They leak because they were never healed, only hidden. Psychoanalysis teaches that suppressed emotion is not erased. It is preserved, festering until acknowledged. You can bury sorrow under smiles. You can drown rage under obligations. But the vessel cracks anyway. The soul leaks anyway. What if the emotion you keep running from is not your enemy, but your compass? What if the feeling you resist most fiercely is the map to what you truly need to face? So ask yourself, what leaks from your soul when you are tired, when you are alone, when the noise fades? Is it grief, anger, fear, love you never admitted? No matter how many times you silence it, It returns because it is you, not the mask you wear, not the role you play, but the truth bleeding through the cracks you cannot seal. Maybe healing doesn't begin by patching the vessel. Maybe healing begins by listening to what still dares to leak out. What if you're not small at all? Imagine realizing that the fear you carry isn't fear of insignificance, but fear of immensity, fear of the endless horizons hidden inside you. You look up at the stars and feel tiny. But what if you are terrified not because you are a speck, but because you sense deep down that you are as vast as everything you see? Your mind holds galaxies of thought, universes of possibility, oceans of dreams you haven't even dared to name yet. And yet you cage yourself inside names, titles, roles. You shrink yourself to fit inside a life that feels manageable, because infinity is heavy. Boundlessness is overwhelming. Expansion demands courage. Vastness demands surrender. Neuroscience shows that your brain is capable of imagining beyond the limits of the known universe. Creativity, wonder, terror, they all hint at a truth your mind can barely hold. You are not defined by your edges. You are defined by what stretches beyond them, potential you can't yet map, futures you haven't yet tasted. So maybe the question isn't, am I enough? Maybe it's, can I bear how much I already am? Maybe your sadness isn't from lack, but from overflow. Maybe your anxiety isn't about falling short, but about knowing, secretly, you could become more than you ever dared to believe. We are taught to fear our smallness, but maybe what really frightens us is our magnitude. The choices we could make, the selves we could unlock, the lives we could live if we stopped pretending we were confined. So ask yourself, what if you're infinite? Are you scared because you're powerless, or because you're holding a power too immense to comprehend? Maybe growth isn't climbing higher. Maybe it's standing still, feeling the universe inside you unfold, and realizing you were never missing anything. You were just afraid of your own endlessness. What if your life isn't a straight path, but a spiral, circling the same struggles over and over? Imagine it. The faces change, the cities change, the calendar flips forward, but underneath the patterns stay eerily the same. Psychologists call it repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate familiar pain, hoping this time you'll master it. But what if you're not fixing it? What if you're just orbiting it endlessly? You tell yourself, this time will be different, this relationship, this job, this dream, yet somehow the endings echo. The lessons blur into déjà vu. Different scenery, same heartbreak. Different goals, same gnawing emptiness. Different faces, same old loneliness pressing against the inside of your ribs. Patterns engrave themselves into the brain like riverbeds carved by ancient floods. Trauma, fear, longing, they don't vanish. They loop. They disguise themselves in new costumes. Different lovers, different bosses, different friends. But the roles stay hauntingly familiar. Betrayal, abandonment, failure. The same emotional gravity pulling you back into the same old story, as if the universe is trying to get you to notice. Now ask yourself, are you evolving, or are you rehearsing? Are you growing, or perfecting a dance choreographed by wounds you don't even remember getting? How many times have you called it fate, or bad luck, when maybe it was just the script inside you repeating itself too perfectly? Maybe the real break isn't forward, but inward. Maybe freedom comes not from changing your surroundings, but from finally noticing the ancient loop tightening around your life. What if your life isn't a line, but a song stuck on repeat? What if the only way out of the loop is to stop pretending it's a new melody and start listening for the silence beneath it, where real change begins? What if everything you believe is wrong, and you're simply too comfortable to notice? Imagine holding your dearest truths in your hands, only to watch them crack, splinter, and collapse under a harsher light. Studies in cognitive dissonance show that when our beliefs are challenged, we don't easily adapt. We resist. We rationalize. We rewrite the evidence to protect ourselves. Being wrong feels like a threat to survival, not just to pride. Neuroscience reveals that the brain treats attacks on core beliefs, like physical pain. Blood rushes, stress hormones spike, neural circuits flare defensively. It's not just an intellectual disagreement. It's a biological war inside you. So, when truth comes, when it shatters your comfort completely, will you welcome it, or will you hide behind the broken pieces and pretend they still fit? Imagine living inside a house built on lies because the walls feel warm and familiar, Every truth that knocks demands you tear it down and rebuild, brick by agonizing brick. It's easier to dismiss the knocking, easier to swear the foundation is strong, even when it trembles beneath your feet. History is crowded with those who refuse to see, scientists who clung to broken models, societies that denied cruelty staring them in the face, individuals who fought viciously to protect illusions that comforted them more than truth ever could. The human mind is not built for pure honesty. It's built for coherence, for stories that make survival feel bearable, no matter how false. And yet, growth only begins when a part of you dies, when you choose truth over safety, when you let your comfort burn to make room for something real. You can be wrong. You are wrong. The real question is, when the truth demands everything from you, your pride, your past, your comfort, will you answer? Or will you turn away and call it a lie? Imagine moving through life believing you are steering the wheel, deciding every turn. But what if the hands gripping that wheel aren't truly yours? What if the habits guiding you, the fears, the impulses, the instincts, were inherited silently before you ever spoke your first word? Science shows that much of what we do is not born from conscious thought, but from unconscious patterns. Mirror neurons, genetic predispositions, early childhood modeling. You absorbed habits like breathing, without questioning. You watched, you imitated, you carried them forward without consent. Think about the way you react under stress, the way you sabotage your own success, the way you love or withdraw or cling. Did you choose these reflexes, or were they programmed into you by 1,000 unseen moments, family histories, cultural myths, ancestral fears, all shaping the architecture of your mind before you knew it was being built? Epigenetics tells us that trauma can pass through generations, encoded not just in stories but in biology itself. You might carry the echo of your grandmother's grief, the anger your father swallowed but never spoke, patterns passed down like invisible heirlooms. If habits are inherited, what does it mean to change? It means waking up, peeling back layers of memory you never made, questioning reflexes you mistake for identity. It means realizing that "this is just who I am" might be the oldest lie you ever believed. So ask yourself, what controls your actions, your habits, or the ghosts of those who walked before you? Are you living your life or continuing someone else's story without even knowing it? Maybe freedom isn't about choosing a new path. Maybe it's about recognizing the invisible hands that have been steering you all along and daring to let go. What if the harshest judge you've ever faced lives inside your own mind? Imagine holding yourself to a standard so brutal, so unforgiving, that you wouldn't dare impose it on anyone else. Imagine punishing yourself daily for mistakes you would have forgiven in a heartbeat if a friend made them. You stumble, and instead of compassion, you deliver a sentence. You falter, and instead of understanding, you issue blame. You hold your own heart hostage to rules you would never enforce on someone you loved. You demand perfection where you would have offered patience. You demand penance where you would have offered grace. Psychologists call it the inner critic, the voice that echoes old criticisms, magnifies your flaws, and rewrites your worth around your worst moments. It doesn't protect you, it shrinks you. It tells you that you're only as good as your last success, or as bad as your last failure. It convinces you that forgiveness is a gift for others, never for yourself. Yet, if someone you cared for came to you, trembling, broken, ashamed, you wouldn't scold them. You wouldn't throw their mistakes back in their face. You'd forgive. You'd comfort. You'd remind them they are more than a single chapter in a much longer story. So why does your kindness expire when the mirror turns toward you? Maybe the problem isn't that you expect too much. Maybe it's that you refuse yourself the mercy you so easily give others. You confuse punishment with growth. You confuse shame with discipline. But wounds don't heal because you berate them. They heal because you dare to tend them, gently, patiently. Ask yourself, would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? Would you carry their guilt on your back like an iron weight? Or would you help them set it down and walk lighter? Maybe it's time to become the friend you've always been to others, the one you've always denied yourself. Maybe healing starts when you decide you are worth forgiving too. What if sadness feels safer than joy? Imagine your brain as a guardian, wired by evolution to protect you from harm. Negative emotions are like warning lights on a dashboard. Pain, loss, grief. They demand attention, but they rarely surprise you. Joy, on the other hand, is a blind jump into uncertainty. Neuroscience shows that the amygdala reacts more strongly to negative stimuli, imprinting sadness deeply into memory while rewarding positive experiences trigger fleeting dopamine surges that your mind soon learns to distrust. Think about it. Sadness unfolds at a predictable pace. You know the ache will rage and then recede like a storm you can weather. Joy can vanish without warning, leaving you unprepared. Evolutionary psychologists argue that negative bias, overreacting to threats, keeps you alive. It makes sadness feel like solid ground, while joy feels like air, impossible to grasp. So you might lean into sadness because it feels anchored, a known companion in the quiet nights when vulnerability looms. Studies in affective neuroscience reveal that the insula and prefrontal cortex work overtime to regulate positive emotion, damping excess euphoria to maintain homeostasis. Meanwhile, the brain embraces sadness, releasing endogenous opiates that soothe sorrow and even bond communities through shared grief. Sad songs, sad films. They comfort you because sorrow feels familiar, controlled. Vulnerability and joy, by contrast, risks dependence and exposure. What if you're choosing sadness not because you crave pain, but because it's the emotion you trust not to betray you? And if joy feels too fragile, too exposing, maybe it's time to face uncertainty head-on, to risk happiness, and learn that the heart can hold delight just as steadily as it holds sorrow. What if your daily costume isn't a choice, but an echo of who you believe they want rather than who you truly are? Imagine waking each morning, reaching for an identity stitched together by expectations. Neuroscience tells us that our brains create a predictive self, an internal model sculpted by past experiences, social feedback, and memories. We don't choose our roles so much as inherit them, wearing familiar masks to navigate worlds we believe demand them. Every smile you practice, every "I'm fine" you rehearse, is a performance. Like actors on an endless stage, we rely on scripts written by culture, family, and history. Studies show mirror neurons fire when we observe others, priming us to mimic behaviors and emotions. Over time, the reflection of approval becomes the reflection of self. Every role we inhabit shifts, leaving echoes of voices we barely recognize as our own. You learn to perform their idea of you until it feels like you. Imagine the plastic suit you slip into, polished, approved, predictable. It shields you from rejection, but stifles authenticity. Your reflection in the mirror nods in familiarity. But is it you? Underneath, your true self waits, hidden in silences and unsent messages. If memory shapes identity and memory is malleable, your self can drift, built on shaky recollections and rehearsed responses. What if you paused the performance? What voice would rise in the absence of applause? It might be quieter, uncertain, vulnerable, but it would be yours. The costume may fall away, and you, unguarded, would stand in the light of being. You'd discover whether you've been performing a character or living a life scripted by someone else, truly yours. What if forgetting isn't just losing memories, but losing parts of ourselves? Imagine a person, a face, a moment from your past, a friend, a loved one, someone you once held close. Over time, their name fades, their face blurs, and their absence doesn't hurt the way it used to. But in forgetting them, what part of you is also slipping away? Neuroscience tells us that memory isn't a perfect recording. It's a reconstructive process. When you remember something, your brain isn't playing a movie. It's assembling fragments, filling in gaps, and often it's altered by the passage of time, by new experiences, and by the ways you've changed. Forgetting isn't simply a failure to recall. It's a gradual disintegration of neural connections. Think about someone you've forgotten. Maybe a childhood friend, a lover, or a person who once shaped your identity. Their absence doesn't just leave a void in your life. It changes the very structure of who you are. Memory isn't just storage, it's identity. Every memory is a thread woven into the fabric of yourself. So when you forget someone, you're not just erasing them, you're unraveling a part of yourself too. Studies show that our sense of self is shaped by autobiographical memory, our collection of experiences that define us. These memories don't just sit in your mind. They live in your actions, your relationships, your fears, and your desires. When a memory fades, part of that self, part of who you were, begins to disappear too. So ask yourself, Who have you forgotten, and in forgetting them, what part of you went missing too? Perhaps forgetting isn't just a loss of the past, it's a quiet, unnoticed transformation of the self. The people we leave behind take pieces of us with them, and in their absence, we reshape who we are, piece by piece. What if your dreams are telling you truths your waking mind refuses to see? Imagine stepping into the world of sleep, where the boundaries of time, logic, and fear dissolve. Your mind drifts into a realm of surreal landscapes, cryptic symbols, and strange faces. But beneath the chaos, could there be hidden messages, truths your conscious mind is too afraid to acknowledge? Studies show that dreams often reflect our deepest anxieties, unresolved emotions, and unmet desires. Neuroscience reveals that during REM sleep, the brain is more active than during waking hours, processing memories and emotions. But instead of simply replaying your day, the brain mixes fragments of past experiences, creating a new world that speaks in metaphors and symbols. Take the recurring dreams you've had, the chase, the fall, the lost keys. The mind doesn't repeat these scenarios for fun. These dreams might be pointing to feelings of helplessness, a fear of failure, or an unresolved trauma your waking self hasn't confronted. Your sleeping mind doesn't censor. It expresses what you've buried deep inside, urging you to acknowledge what you haven't yet healed. Dreams can reveal what you refuse to see when you're awake, the faces of people long forgotten, or places you've never been. Could these be projections of unresolved memories or parts of your psyche you haven't integrated? Maybe your dream of flying speaks to a need for freedom, or drowning reflects suffocation under emotional weight. Maybe the house you're always searching for symbolizes your search for inner peace. So why do we ignore these messages? Perhaps the truth is too uncomfortable. But what if, by paying attention to our dreams, we could uncover hidden patterns, understand ourselves better, and heal wounds we didn't even know were there? What if the truths you avoid in your waking? What if one moment could rewrite the story of your life? Imagine standing at a crossroads, heart pounding, when in a split second, everything shifts. Maybe you were a child, breathing in your first ocean breeze, unaware that this salty wind would spark a passion that guides you still. Or perhaps it was the harsh click of a cell phone at midnight, the call that brought news of loss, teaching you that fragility lives beside every heartbeat. We rarely recognize these pivotal points as they occur. Psychologists call them critical periods, moments when the brain's plasticity peaks, ready to absorb and adapt. Studies show that experiences during these windows leave permanent neural fingerprints, shaping preferences, fears, and strengths. Think about it. The first time you stood up to speak in public, hands trembling, voice unsteady. Did you feel a surge of power that awakened confidence? Or did you shrink back, planting the seeds of self-doubt you still carry? Or maybe it was a betrayal, a friend's lie whispered in your ear, that cracked open your trust forever, teaching you to guard your heart. Neuroscience reveals that the amygdala tags emotional events as important, carving them into memory with vivid intensity. Yet the cortex, our rational mind, often files away the context, leaving us to piece together why a single glance, smell, or phrase can still make us shudder years later. What if the moment that shaped you wasn't grand, but gentle? A teacher's single word, a stranger's smile, a sunrise witnessed alone, so quiet you didn't notice until years later you felt its echo in your choices, your dreams. What if you're living the aftershock of that moment right now? What if the true lesson isn't in recognizing it then, but in understanding how it lives within you today? What if your existence isn't bound to flesh, but to patterns of energy that outlive your body? Imagine consciousness not as soul, but as information, an intricate web of neural connections, electrical impulses, and chemical signals. When the heart stops, the body decays, but physics teaches us energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The heat dissipates, the ions scatter, yet the information encoded in those fleeting patterns leaves subtle ripples in the universe. Studies in neuroscience show memory and personality arise from synaptic connections. When those connections vanish, the self as you knew it fades. No experiment has yet captured consciousness beyond neural death. Quantum theories hint that information might persist in subtle fields, but there is no evidence consciousness survives bodily demise. Even near-death experiences can be explained by surges of brain activity when oxygen levels drop. Imagine you're you as data streamed across billions of neurons. When the stream ceases, is there a backup? Some propose quantum entanglement in microtubules, but these models remain unproven and contested. Biology points to irreversible entropy. Cells break down, circuits collapse, and the moment the last neuron fires, the self dissolves into the flow of cosmic energy. Yet, your name echoes in memory, in DNA passed to descendants, in stories we tell, in vibrations of air when someone speaks it. Your digital echoes, photos, messages, recordings, persist in networks, a testament to your being. In that archive, fragments of your consciousness whisper your name when recalled. Though your neurons die, traces of your life dance in electrons long after flesh returns to dust even. What if aliens arrived on Earth, silent, observing, studying us with curiosity and awe? They examine us with advanced senses, scanning our biology, reading our movements, decoding our signals. But in their eyes, what do they see? Do they understand us? Or are we just a story wrapped in biology, a puzzle they can't solve because they are too distant from our essence? Science shows that our consciousness, our emotions, our thoughts are shaped by complex biological systems. Neurons firing, hormones pulsing, DNA unfolding. To an alien species, the human mind could seem like nothing more than a set of biological functions, a computer processing signals, nothing more than the sum of cells and impulses. But we feel, don't we? We dream, we suffer, we love. We build entire worlds out of ideas, transcending our biology. We've created art, philosophy, music, and stories, things beyond mere survival. So, when an alien species looks at us, do they only see the chemical reactions? Or do they see the invisible thread connecting all our experiences? The thing we call humanity. Is it something they can understand, or will they never truly know us? Consider how we struggle to understand other species on Earth. Dogs, dolphins, even the trees. We know they feel, but we can't feel what they feel. We interpret their behavior, but we can't live in their consciousness. Now, what if aliens face the same barrier with us? They may understand the mechanics of our body, the patterns of our behavior, but will they ever understand the soul behind the story? So ask yourself, if aliens looked at you, would they understand you? Or would they see only a story wrapped in biology, one that makes sense to us, but remains an enigma to them? Maybe the real question isn't whether they understand us. Maybe it's whether we too understand what it means to be human. What if pain isn't just the sensation in your body, but the story your mind tells about it? Imagine for a moment that the physical sensation of pain is nothing more than a signal, a raw, biological message from your body. But the real pain comes when your mind steps in, interpreting that signal and turning it into something more. The brain is a meaning-making machine. It doesn't just experience events, it assigns them significance. When you feel pain, the body sends a message to the brain, but it's the brain that decides what that pain means. Is it an injury, a threat, a failure? And in those moments, the story you tell yourself about that pain can amplify it, transform it, even define it. Studies show that our perception of pain is not just a physical experience, but a psychological one. The brain's response to pain can be influenced by our emotions, memories, and beliefs. A simple scratch can feel excruciating if you believe it signals something serious. Meanwhile, chronic pain becomes a part of your identity, not because of the physical sensation, but because the story you tell about it becomes inescapable. So what if the pain isn't the injury, but the narrative that follows? When we attach fear to the sensation, fear of the unknown, fear of limitation, fear of being weak, the pain is amplified. The more you tell yourself, this will never go away, the more the body responds as if it won't. Maybe the real question isn't, how can I stop the pain, but how can I change the story I tell about it? What if healing doesn't come from escaping pain, but from seeing it for what it truly is? A signal, a message, something that doesn't define you, but something you have the power to interpret. What if photos are illusions disguised as truth? Imagine holding an image so real, faces frozen in time, sunsets etched in color, that you swear you can step into it. But what you see is not the moment itself, only a fragment, stripped of warmth, laughter, tears, scent. Memory and vision intertwine in the hippocampus and visual cortex, reconstructing past experiences each time you recall them. Photos capture pixels, but memories capture meaning, colored by emotion and context. Recall a childhood snapshot, yourself on a bicycle at dusk, wind in your hair. Can you feel the sun's warmth on your cheeks, the squeak of pedals? The hum of cicadas in the grass? Probably not, because memory isn't playback, it's creation. It stitches sensory residue, emotional resonance, and present perspective into a new tapestry. Without that living weave, a photo is a hollow shell, a beautiful lie. Cognitive scientists document confabulation, when memory gaps get filled with plausible fiction. Photographs concede false recollections. People come to believe events happen differently, or even at all, because an image suggested it. Alzheimer's patients will swear they made trips captured in old photos that never occurred. In social media's filtered reality, curated images fuel nostalgia for moments we never lived, gifted by a printed illusion. Yet some memories endure with vivid clarity, flashbulb memories of profound events that the amygdala tags as unforgettable. Even these shift over time as stories retold warp the details. Research shows that each recall subtly alters our memories, like a photocopy of a photocopy fading and blurring. Photos may freeze the moment, but they can't capture the heartbeat's tempo, the warmth of a touch, the bittersweet ache beneath the smile. What if the truest image resides not on paper or screen, but in your mind, a dynamic, breathing memory that grows more alive with each telling? That living picture holds sorrow, joy, wonder, and loss in vibrant motion, far beyond any frozen still. What if you really knew how many days you had left? Would you still waste a single one? Imagine your lifespan ticked down like seconds on a clock. Each sunrise numbered, each breath a reminder. Neuroscience shows our perception of time accelerates as we age. A year feels shorter. Days blur. The brain's internal clock, governed by the suprachiasmatic nucleus, keeps biological rhythms, but subjective time bends with novelty. New experiences stretch moments, routine ones slip away unnoticed. Studies on time scarcity reveal that awareness of limited time reshapes priorities. People reminded of mortality choose meaningful goals, deepen relationships, and pursue passions they once deferred. In psychology, mortality salience shifts focus from trivial tasks to what truly matters. Yet most drift on autopilot through weeks and months, ignoring the ticking beneath. In interviews with terminally ill patients, the most profound regrets center on time unused. Unlived dreams, unspoken apologies, precious moments lost. Hospice studies show that when days are counted, people trade chores for conversation, consumption for connection. Imagine standing at the edge of end, feeling each moment's weight. You'd savor the taste of coffee, the warmth of sunlight, each laugh shared. You'd stop mindless scrolling, stop delaying dreams, stop letting fear steal your days. You'd focus on love, on purpose, on the simple acts that define a life well lived. Time is our most precious resource because it's irreplaceable. Every second we let slip is gone forever. And yet, we treat days like infinite currency until scarcity forces us to account. If you knew your days numbered, would you still waste another? Imagine standing on a path, feeling the weight of the world in every step, but unsure of where you're heading. You feel lost, confused by the twists, the turns, the choices ahead. But what if you're not truly lost? What if your clarity isn't clouded by uncertainty, but by someone else's map? A map that wasn't designed for your journey. Psychology tells us that we're often influenced by the perceptions and beliefs of others. Family expectations, societal norms, friends' ambitions. We're handed maps, carefully drawn by people who have their own paths to walk. We follow them because they seem safe, trusted, or familiar. But those maps were never meant for us. They weren't designed for our terrain. Think about the paths you've taken, the decisions you've made. How many of them were truly your own? How many were shaped by others, by their fears, their dreams, their views of the world? The truth is, sometimes the fog that clouds your clarity isn't a lack of direction. It's the accumulation of other people's ideas, expectations, and judgments that you've let define your path. Neuroscience shows that our brains are constantly influenced by external stimuli, by the people we surround ourselves with, by the stories we hear, by the pressures we face. The brain doesn't just process information, it absorbs it, shaping your choices, sometimes without you even realizing it. What if you've been navigating your life by a map someone else drew, with landmarks that don't even exist for you? So ask yourself, what clouds your clarity? Is it really a lack of direction, or is it the fog of someone else's map? Maybe you're not lost at all. Maybe you're just trying to walk someone else's path, in someone else's shoes. Perhaps true clarity doesn't come from finding the right path. It comes from realizing you're the one who gets to draw the map. What if silence isn't as peaceful as we think? Imagine sitting in the quiet, your thoughts swirling around you. But the longer you stay there, the more it feels like the silence is pressing in on you, suffocating you. What if what breaks the silence isn't loneliness, but the weight of finally being heard? We're taught to value silence. We're told it's where we find peace. But for some, silence is a battlefield. It's the space where fears grow louder, where regrets echo endlessly. The longer you stay in it, the more the silence feels like a reflection of your inner turmoil, of everything you've never said, everything you've kept hidden, all the words you thought you could live without. Neuroscience tells us that humans are social creatures. We thrive on connection, on communication. When we're isolated, our brains experience increased levels of stress. The silence doesn't just reflect the absence of sound, it reflects the absence of others. The lack of validation, the absence of shared experiences, the yearning to be seen, the echo of your own voice bouncing off the walls of your mind. So, what happens when you break the silence? Is it the relief of finally speaking, or the fear of what's been waiting to be heard? When you give voice to your thoughts, your truths, what happens to the weight that's been building inside you? Do you release it, or does it take on new meaning when it's out in the open? Maybe the real question isn't why we fear silence. Maybe it's why we fear being heard. The truth we hold inside can be a burden, heavy and unspoken. And the moment we open our mouths, we give that truth life, and with it, the possibility of change. So ask yourself, what breaks your silence? Is it loneliness or the weight of finally being heard? Maybe true freedom comes when you stop hiding from your own voice and allow the silence to speak for itself. What if the beliefs you defend are both your shield and your prison? Imagine the convictions you hold most dear, values forged by childhood lessons, cultural codes, and whispered reassurances. Some beliefs protect you, like a fortress wall guarding vulnerable hope. But other beliefs are barbed wire, trapping you in old patterns and fears you once outgrew. Think of the belief that success equals worth. You chase every accolade, each promotion, longing for approval, until your joy becomes hostage to another's opinion. Or the belief that vulnerability is weakness. You hide your pain behind jokes and busyness, convinced that feeling deep will break you. Consider the belief that asking for help is failure, that love must be earned, that your past mistakes define your future. Yet those very beliefs lock away your capacity to grow, to connect, to heal. Neuroscience shows that cognitive schemas, mental frameworks etched into neural circuits, shape perception and behavior, filtering every experience through their lens. Once formed, they reinforce patterns even when they harm. The survivor who believes trust is betrayal will scan every gesture for deceit, repelling potential allies. The perfectionist who equates mistakes with failure will freeze at choice points, paralyzed by fear and self-judgment. Research in cognitive behavioral therapy reveals that identifying and challenging core beliefs can rewire these pathways, opening new routes for thought. When the long-held belief, "I am not enough," is challenged, people report relief, creativity, deeper connections. Yet it takes deliberate practice to untangle these mental vines and cultivate new growth. But beliefs aren't immutable. Each moment you question them, you create a crack in the walls you built. Every time you allow a whisper of doubt, you weaken the trap. The belief that you must always be right gives way to curiosity. The belief that pain is forever gives way to hope. What if the next belief you defend is freedom? What if you choose to defend compassion over judgment, possibility over fear, vulnerability over pretense? What if you finally let your heart lead? What could you become then? And which beliefs will you let fall away like old armor, freeing you to step into something new? Let every belief you defend be a choice, not an echo. And let the courage to question become your truest defense. What if you're repeating the same patterns, loving people who echo old wounds in new voices? Imagine every heart you give has been shaped by past echoes, each romance just another stage for pain you thought you left behind. Psychology shows we seek familiarity, even in harm. Attachment theories reveal that early wounds draw us to relationships mirroring them, offering chances to heal or to hurt again. You don't just fall in love, you fall into the loop of your own history. Think of neural pathways as ruts carved in the mind. Every choice you repeat deepens them, making new roads harder to find. Studies on trauma bonding, Explain why we stay. Moments of care after cruelty release dopamine, reinforcing the bond even when it breaks you. Mirror neurons fire as we observe familiar patterns, priming us to recreate emotional rhythms we once learned as children. Imagine stepping out of that cycle. What if you paused before you gave your heart? What if you listened to the quiet ache beneath desire, the ghost of wounds unanswered? Polyvagal theory suggests your body remembers threat long after your mind forgets, keeping you trapped in loops of fight, flight, and freeze. Pause. Feel the trembling under your skin. Notice the echo of old pain in every longing glance. In that silence, you hold power to rewrite your script, choosing relationships not for familiarity, but for genuine connection, not for echoes, but for harmony, not for wounds reborn, but for wounds tended with compassion. Break the pattern. Dance outside the echo chamber of memory. Only then can you learn to love not the past reborn, but the whole person you are becoming. Become a person defined by hope rather than history. Imagine a world where words are not required, where you could communicate only through silence. What if you never had to speak again? What would that silence say about you? What if the fear of being understood is greater than the fear of staying hidden? Neuroscience tells us that communication isn't just about words. It's about body language, tone, energy, things that speak louder than speech. In some ways, silence speaks more deeply than anything you could ever say aloud. But it's not always easy to let silence carry the weight. Silence demands vulnerability. It asks for truth without the comfort of the stories we tell ourselves. Think about the moments when you've chosen silence. Not because you didn't have the words, but because you were afraid of what those words might reveal. You keep your thoughts hidden, not because they are unimportant, but because being truly understood means exposing parts of yourself you might not be ready to face. In the silence, you protect your identity, your boundaries, your fears. In speaking, you risk unraveling them. Psychology tells us that vulnerability is a double-edged sword. It connects us, but it also exposes us to judgment. Speaking means giving others the power to shape your narrative, to see parts of you that might remain hidden otherwise. Being understood can be terrifying because it feels like losing control. When you're hidden, you're safe. But when you speak, you open the door to being seen, and maybe even rejected. So ask yourself, do you need to speak? Or is being understood scarier than staying hidden? Maybe the real question isn't whether you need to express yourself. Maybe it's whether you're ready to be known. The silence speaks, but the truth it carries can be more than you can bear. What if the things we deem sacred are nothing more than beliefs we've forgotten to question? What if love, truth, fear are just patterns of thought, passing through us like wind through trees? Each of us carries within us these invisible forces that guide our lives. But do we ever ask, why? Do we kneel to them because we truly believe, or because we've been taught to? Take truth, for example. Is it something we discover, or something we're conditioned to accept? Scientists once believed the Earth was flat, a truth so widely accepted that challenging it was unthinkable. Yet, with time, new discoveries reshaped that truth, proving that what we hold sacred is often just the prevailing belief of the moment. Then there's love. Is love a biological imperative, a chemical reaction in our brains, or something more profound? In ancient times, love was seen as a divine gift, a force transcending the physical. Today, we see it as a complex web of hormones and neurotransmitters, but that doesn't make it any less sacred, does it? In a world where everything can be explained by science, we still feel the pull of something beyond our comprehension. The question is, what if the sacred is not an idea to be proven, but a feeling to be experienced? Fear is often called sacred too, an instinct, a survival mechanism. We kneel to it, afraid to step beyond its shadow. But what if the fear that binds us is nothing more than a response to uncertainty, a lack of understanding? Imagine if, instead of fearing the unknown, we stepped into it with the same reverence we reserve for what we already know. Could that change everything? In the end, what if the sacred is not a set of beliefs but the act of questioning itself? What if it's in the search, the uncertainty, the desire to know that we find our true connection to the world around us? What if you've spent your entire life chasing something, only to realize it wasn't what you truly wanted? What if your goals, those things you thought were pulling you toward the future, were actually the things keeping you tethered to the past? Goals are often seen as markers of success, achievements to aim for. But what if the pursuit of these goals is just a form of escape? What if you're not really moving forward, but running from something you've never faced? Consider the way trauma shapes us. It's not always an obvious wound. Sometimes the scars are buried so deep that we forget they're there, until they emerge in the form of actions, behaviors, or even life choices. Some of us think we're pursuing success, wealth, or recognition, but what if we're really just trying to outpace the pain? Perhaps every step forward is just a way to outrun the ghosts of the past that haunt us, reminding us of who we were before we started running. It's a subtle dance between progress and escape. We may tell ourselves that we're chasing our dreams, but could it be that our dreams are merely reflections of unresolved conflicts? Are you truly driven by passion, or is your drive just a mechanism to prevent you from confronting old wounds? This isn't just about career goals or material pursuits. Sometimes it's the simple choices, the day-to-day decisions that reflect a deeper need to avoid uncomfortable truths. Let's think about it. The harder you run, the more the past can feel like it's chasing you. What if the real breakthrough isn't in accomplishing more, but in learning to face what you've been fleeing from all along? To truly move forward, sometimes the greatest challenge is not running faster, but learning how to stop and stand still with the things we've been avoiding. What if the ultimate freedom lies not in escaping from the past, but in finally embracing it and accepting the lessons it offers? What if the thing you're searching for isn't something external, but rather an internal truth, an elusive piece you believe will fill a void in your life? We often tell ourselves that there's something missing, some essential part of us that, if discovered, would complete the puzzle of who we are. But what if that missing piece doesn't truly exist in the way we imagine it? What if the search itself is what keeps us from feeling whole? For centuries, people have believed that fulfillment lies in something external, whether it's a person, a career, wealth, or even a state of being. Society feeds this illusion, suggesting that there's always something we can attain or achieve that will make us feel complete. Yet, many find themselves chasing after things they think they need, only to realize that once obtained, they still feel empty. This emptiness is not a sign that they're missing something else, but rather that the pursuit was based on a false premise, the idea that we are incomplete without something more. Imagine for a moment that the missing piece isn't an object or a person, but the understanding that you're already whole. Perhaps the very desire for completion is the thing that holds you back from embracing the fullness of your own existence. The more we seek this piece, the further we drift from the truth, that completeness is a state of mind, not a destination. So, would finding that missing piece complete you, or would it reveal a deeper truth about the illusion of needing more? Could it be that the search for something greater than ourselves is the very thing that keeps us from realizing that we already possess everything we need? The moment we stop seeking external validation and start turning inward is when we begin to understand that the peace we've been looking for was within us all along. What if mirrors aren't as honest as we think they are? We often stand before them, expecting clarity, a true reflection of ourselves. But what if the mirror only gives us part of the story? Sure, it reflects our faces, our bodies, but it never shows our inner weight, the emotional burden we carry, or the subtle scars left behind by time and experience. Mirrors capture the surface, but they can't capture our pain, our joy, our past. They don't reflect our thoughts, the silent battles waged within our minds. Think about it. We judge ourselves, our worth, based on these reflections. Yet, these mirrors give only half the truth. They don't account for the history of every smile we forced, every moment of fear or joy that shaped who we are. We may look perfect in them, but are we really? Or are we just a polished image, crafted from angles and light, a carefully staged reflection? A reflection so polished, so perfect, yet hiding the truth beneath the surface. It's an image the world can accept, but it doesn't show who we truly are. So, the next time you stand before a mirror, ask yourself, are you really seeing the truth, or are you just seeing the surface of a much more complicated story? What if mirrors were never meant to tell the whole truth, just the part we're comfortable seeing? What if the real reflection lies not in the glass, but in how we truly feel, how we carry ourselves in the unseen moments of our lives, the ones that can't be captured or reflected in a simple image? Moments of deep joy, of raw pain, or quiet sadness, all the hidden parts that never make it to the mirror. But do we have the courage to look beyond the glass and see ourselves as we truly are, not in the mirror, but in our hearts, minds, and souls. Only then might we truly discover the truth that lies within us, beyond the surface we so carefully curate for the world to see. And that truth, my friend, is often much more complicated, yet far more beautiful than the reflection that stares back at us from the glass. What if you've forgotten to breathe? What if, in the rush of life, you've been taking shallow breaths, too focused on the future, or lost in the past to truly feel the present air around you? Breathing is the one constant we have, an involuntary act that sustains us, but it can also be a tool for presence, a way to reconnect with the moment. How often do you pause to notice the air filling your lungs? We take breathing for granted. It's a physiological process regulated by the brainstem, but there's more to it than that. When you focus on your breath, you can unlock a sense of clarity, calm, and grounding. But so many of us exist in a constant state of shallow, unconscious breathing. Our minds racing, our bodies tense, disconnected from the life-giving rhythm happening inside us. What if the secret to living fully in the present is simply to breathe deeply? The deep breath calms the nervous system, reducing stress and anxiety. It's a reminder that, despite everything, we are alive right now. In that moment of deep inhalation, we connect with the world around us. Each breath an affirmation that we exist in this exact place, at this exact time. The air you breathe is a direct link to your environment, to the earth beneath your feet, to the world that continues to move even when you're caught up in your thoughts. Each breath is not just a necessity. It's an invitation to stop and feel alive, to acknowledge that the present moment is all you truly have. You can't breathe in the past, nor can you breathe into the future. It's only now. When was the last time you truly felt the air in your lungs? The act of breathing connects us to life itself. It's not just about surviving, but about being present in the life you're living. Each breath is a choice to engage with the present, to be aware of the now. So, take a deep breath and remember that the air around you is always here, waiting for you to truly live in it. What if the most powerful parts of you are the ones you've buried deep inside? What if the memory you've locked away so tightly is the key to understanding who you are right now? We all carry a past. Some of it we embrace, some of it we bury. But what happens when we try to forget? Are we truly free, or are we just running from the shadows of our own minds? Imagine for a moment a memory so painful or so overwhelming that you shoved it into the darkest corner of your mind, hoping it would stay hidden forever. But here's the thing about the human mind. It doesn't forget. No matter how much we try to lock something away, it festers in the silence, quietly shaping our thoughts, our decisions, and our fears. We may think it's gone, but it's always there, like a ghost, waiting for the moment we're ready to face it. Have you ever caught yourself reacting to something small, someone's words, a simple situation, and realized your response was disproportionate to the moment? Could it be that the buried memory has found its way back, seeping into your present without your permission? Perhaps you've buried it so deep that even you don't remember it, but it still echoes in everything you do. What if the memory you locked away is the missing puzzle piece? What if unlocking it isn't just about healing? It's about becoming the person you were meant to be. What if facing that buried part of yourself could set you free, allowing you to live not as someone defined by the past, but as someone who finally knows their full story? We all have something we've buried. The real question is, when will you be ready to unearth it? What if you are more than just your thoughts? What if, when the mind quiets, it doesn't disappear? You just become more aware of what lies beneath the noise. Thoughts come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky, but what if there's something more fundamental to your existence? Something beyond the fleeting chatter in your mind? We often define ourselves by our thoughts. We identify with our beliefs, memories, and the inner monologue that tells us who we are. But what happens when you strip away those thoughts? When you're no longer caught in the endless cycle of self-reflection and judgment, do you still exist? There are moments in meditation or deep contemplation where the mind falls silent. In those rare instances, it might feel like you've ceased to be, as if the very essence of who you are is wrapped up in the constant flow of thought. But in that silence, isn't there still awareness? Even in the absence of thoughts, there's still something there, a presence, a feeling, an awareness of simply being. Perhaps the mind is not the creator of your identity, but merely a tool, a lens through which you experience reality. The essence of who you are doesn't disappear when the thoughts quiet. It only becomes clearer. You are not the mind. You are the awareness observing it. So, in moments of stillness, when your thoughts fade into the background, don't fear that you've vanished. Instead, recognize that you've stepped closer to the truth of who you really are, an observer, an experiencer of life, far deeper than the thoughts that try to define you. What if your heart, the very core of who you are, is not as visible as it seems? Imagine it hidden behind layers of armor, an invisible shield crafted over years of self-preservation. It's easy to assume that the heart is something we wear openly, eager, vulnerable, and raw. Yet, for many, it's guarded, shielded by walls built from past experiences, hurts, and fears. What if, in your efforts to protect yourself, you've unknowingly locked away the very thing that holds your true strength? The heart, metaphorically speaking, represents our deepest emotions, desires, and connections. It's the center of our authenticity, yet it often finds itself concealed behind defenses, whether it's pride, anger, or indifference. We may appear open and engaged with the world, but behind the scenes, we keep our truest selves wrapped in layers of protection. The more we shield our hearts, the harder it becomes to connect deeply with others or ourselves. Consider the moments when you've been hurt, when trust was broken or love was lost. In those moments, did your heart retreat behind walls, swearing never to be vulnerable again? Or have you allowed it to remain open, even in the face of risk? Many people are walking around with hearts that beat quietly behind armor no one can see. They long for connection, but hesitate to truly open up because they fear being hurt once more. But what if the armor, while keeping pain at bay, also keeps out the possibility of real joy, deep relationships, and authentic healing? The question isn't whether your heart is open, but whether you're willing to let it be. The more we hold on to the armor, the more distant we become from others, and perhaps from ourselves. But what if, in allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, in softening those defenses, we find not only connection, but the liberation of living authentically? The heart will always beat. The choice is whether it beats behind a barrier or in the open, where it can truly be felt, understood, and shared. Would you dare to remove the armor and let your heart beat freely? Or do you remain hidden behind the walls you've built? What if, at the very core of your existence, lies something untouched by time, by change, by all the things you think define you? What if, when everything else is stripped away, the roles you play, the relationships you carry, the achievements you chase, what remains is the essence of who you are, the part that stays constant, the pulse that never stops, even when the world around you crumbles? This is the part that never conforms, the deep truth you can't escape. In moments of loss, in moments of silence, we are forced to confront what lies at our core. When the world tells us to be this or that, when expectations weigh us down and identities blur, we often forget that at the center of it all is something more powerful than any label. It's not something the world can touch. It's the quiet rhythm that beats inside, unseen but never forgotten. It's the part of us that endures. When everything is gone, what remains? Is it your will to survive, your resilience, or is it something deeper, something more primal? That core, that essence, is what pushes you forward when nothing else seems to. It's your truth, raw, unfiltered, untouched by time. It doesn't need the validation of the world. It simply is. And in that truth, you find your strength. So, what's at your core? When everything else is taken, it's the heartbeat of your existence, the pulse of who you truly are that will guide you home. What if your softest truth, the quietest part of you, is the very thing you've been hiding all along? Imagine that truth, not as a weakness, but as the most delicate part of your being. So fragile, so pure, that you've instinctively wrapped it in layers of strength, armor forged from years of survival, protection, and fear. What if this truth holds the key to your deepest authenticity, yet you've buried it so deeply, convinced that the world isn't ready to see it? We all carry a soft truth, an inner part of us that craves recognition, love, and understanding. It could be a vulnerability, a dream, a fear, or even a longing we've been too afraid to acknowledge. It's the part of us that, when exposed, makes us feel most alive, but also most susceptible to pain. So, we protect it. We build walls. We show the world our strengths, our capabilities, the version of ourselves that can withstand the storm. But why do we hide that soft truth? Why do we fear showing the world the part of us that craves gentleness, connection, and honesty? Perhaps it's because that truth feels too raw, too unrefined for a world that often values strength over vulnerability. Maybe we've been taught to be tough, to show no weakness, to never let anyone see the cracks in our armor. But what if this weakness is, in fact, the very thing that makes us human? What if it's not a flaw to be hidden, but a treasure to be shared? Our softest truths are often the most profound, yet we tend to bury them under layers of strength, afraid that their exposure will leave us vulnerable to judgment or rejection. But what if, by embracing and revealing these truths, we could find deeper connections, not only with others, but with ourselves? When we allow ourselves to soften, to reveal the tender parts of our soul, we invite healing, not just for us, but for everyone who has been hiding their own soft truth. So, what's your softest truth? And why do you hide it under layers of strength? The truth is, the strength it takes to reveal our vulnerabilities is often far greater than the strength it takes to maintain a facade. The question remains, are you ready to uncover the truth you've kept hidden and let it transform you? What if the very path you're on, whether it feels like progress or collapse, is just a matter of perception? What if you're spiraling, but you can't tell if you're moving up or down? The cycles of life are often hidden in plain sight. The forward motion we think we're experiencing could be leading us into a deeper spiral, or, on the other hand, the moments of despair may be the very signs that we're about to break through to something new. Imagine you're climbing a staircase, each step taken with intent, but the view from the top isn't clear. You can't see the distance you've traveled, only the next step in front of you. The climb is slow, and sometimes it feels like you're taking steps backward. Yet, when you look back, the ground you've covered is undeniable. We are so caught up in the idea of linear progress, always expecting forward movement, that we fail to notice the patterns in the cycles we are living. Sometimes, stagnation is the first step toward real growth, and a stumble can reveal deeper strengths we never knew we had. The truth is, progress and collapse can feel identical. Both experiences pull at us with equal intensity, like waves crashing against the shore. The difference is that progress is often subtle, almost imperceptible, while collapse can be loud, sudden, and impossible to ignore. We may feel like we're falling, but in reality, the downward motion is part of the momentum needed to catapult us upward. The challenge is knowing the difference between a pitfall and a leap. So, how do you know which way you're spiraling? The key lies in awareness. Are you truly watching yourself, observing the pattern, or are you swept up in the current, too distracted by the noise to see the path ahead? Only by stepping back with clarity can you discern whether the spiral is one of decay or growth. The rise and the fall are one and the same, but your ability to see where you're headed, that's what defines the journey. What if your value isn't something you can define, but something others perceive from you? What if the very concept of self-worth is a reflection of how others interact with you, how they use you, how they see you? We often measure our value based on what we contribute, our work, our presence, the things we give to the world around us. But does that mean we are only as valuable as the utility we provide? Consider the way society values success. It's based on outcomes, what you achieve, how you perform, what you accomplish for others. But what if the truest measure of value isn't what others gain from you, but simply who you are in the quiet moments when no one is watching? What if your worth exists in the essence of your being, not just in the external value you provide? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking our value lies in our output, in how much we can give, how much we can achieve. We're taught that our worth is tied to our usefulness, that the more we give, the more we're worth. But when the giving becomes a cycle, do we lose ourselves in it? Do we forget that we are valuable not for what we provide, but for who we are, deep within, beyond roles and expectations? Your value isn't just about how much you give or how much others take from you. It's found in the quiet moments of self-awareness, in the spaces where you don't need to be anything for anyone else. You are valuable because you exist, because you breathe, because you carry a unique essence that no one else can replicate. So, what if your value isn't about meeting expectations or providing for others? What if it's about realizing that you, as you are, without the need for validation, are already whole? What if the role you've been playing isn't really yours at all, but one you've inherited, shaped by expectations, and rehearsed until it became second nature? Imagine stepping back and realizing that, for years, you've followed a script, one written by society, by your past, by others around you. The lines were drawn for you, the character defined, and you've been performing the same role on repeat. But somewhere along the way, you began to wonder, are you tired of the script? Every day we wake up and step into roles. We play the partner, the parent, the worker, the friend, sometimes even the enemy to ourselves. We do it because it's what's expected. It's what we've been taught is necessary for survival, for belonging. But deep down, a whisper of resistance begins to form. The words we've been reciting no longer feel true. The mask, once comfortable, starts to chafe. We start asking ourselves, am I more than this? Is there a deeper role waiting for me, one I have yet to discover? Roles often trap us in patterns. We become so wrapped up in playing a part that we forget to question whether it's the role we truly want or the one we've simply been handed. Over time, we start to wear these roles like an ill-fitting costume. We forget who we were before the script was written. And then there's a moment, a quiet, unsettling moment, when we realize we are tired of pretending, tired of fitting ourselves into someone else's mold, tired of rehearsing lines that don't reflect to who we are inside. But what if the script could change? What if you could step off the stage, take a breath, and rewrite the narrative? What if you could give yourself permission to abandon the role and live a life free of the expectations that have bound you? It's not easy. Rewriting your script requires courage. It demands that you face the unknown and relinquish the safety of the familiar. But in doing so, you might uncover a truth. You are the author of your own story. So, what role do you play? And are you tired of the script? The most powerful act of rebellion is not resisting the world outside, but resisting the roles it tries to impose on you. What would happen if you stepped into the role of yourself? What if the script you've been following was never meant to define you at all? What if resistance isn't always a sign of strength, but a mask for something deeper? What if the force you feel pushing against certain parts of your life isn't your will to stand tall, but your fear trying to convince you it's in control? The resistance we feel often wears the cloak of determination. We think we're fighting for what's right, what we believe in, but sometimes it's the shadow of fear standing in our way, disguised as strength. Think about the moments when you resist change, or love, or even your own potential. At first glance, it feels like strength, a defense against what's unfamiliar, what's unknown. But when you dig deeper, you might find that what you're really resisting is the fear of losing control, the fear of being vulnerable, of stepping into the unknown, and the fear of what might happen when you let go of the walls you've so carefully built. True strength comes from knowing when to surrender, when to embrace change, when to let go of fear's tight grip. Resistance, in its purest form, should come from a place of power, not from the defense of an illusion. It's not about holding on to what's comfortable. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to let life flow through you. The trick is recognizing the difference between true will and fear pretending to be strength. So, what do you resist? The real question isn't what you're pushing back against, but why. Is it your true power speaking? Or is it the fear that whispers you're not enough, that tells you the world is too dangerous to trust? Resistance can be a shield, but sometimes it's just a cage holding you back from what you could truly become. What if the ties that bind you are not love, but the weight of expectation? Imagine waking up each day with a pull stronger than any desire, a tether to something invisible yet omnipresent. The kind of pull that doesn't ask if you want to stay. It simply demands that you do. In the midst of it all, love may try to whisper its voice, but expectations roar louder. They're born from the past, shaped by others, and held in place by fear. Think about it. Expectation isn't born of warmth. It's forged in duty, responsibility, and sometimes fear. It's a chain that doesn't have to be visible to be heavy. It's an unspoken pressure to perform, to be more than what you are, or to fit into a mold that was never yours to begin with. You meet the eyes of others, and in their gaze, you feel the weight of what they expect. And somehow, even when the heart whispers that it needs something else, something pure and untainted by demand, you stay. What holds you in place? Love? Perhaps, but it's easy to mistake love for attachment when that attachment is soaked in obligations, the kind that doesn't nourish but drains. And still you remain, trapped by the thought of failing, of falling short, of not measuring up to the life that was laid out before you. You live in the shadow of someone else's vision, a version of yourself you never chose but were led to accept. The question isn't just what holds you, it's why you choose to stay tied. Is it truly love you crave? Or is it the comfort of staying where the chains are familiar? Perhaps you fear what might happen if you break free, the unknown, the loss of the sense of purpose that's anchored you for so long. But are you truly living or just existing? What if the very thing you fear, freedom, is the key to unlocking the love you've been searching for all along? What if the person you are today is not the person you've been claiming you'll become? What if your future self is quietly waiting for you to stop just imagining it and start acting like it? We often speak of the person we aspire to be, the dreams we hope to realize, but the real question is, does who we are in this moment align with the future we envision? Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, gazing out over the horizon, imagining a version of yourself living the life you've always dreamed of. You can see it clearly: success, peace, fulfillment. It feels real, doesn't it? But here's the catch. While we can dream, the real transformation happens when we stop just visualizing and start acting. The distance between where you are now and where you want to be isn't measured by dreams. It's measured by the choices you make today, the small, deliberate steps you take to bridge that gap. Every action, every decision is a reflection of who you are becoming. But do those actions match the version of yourself you claim to want? You might say you want to be healthier, but do you make time for exercise, or do you keep putting it off? You might say you want to be successful, but are you investing in the skills, relationships, and habits that will make that success inevitable? It's easy to talk about the future, but the truth is, the future is created by the person you are now. Who you're becoming is not a distant concept. It's unfolding with every choice you make. It's in the effort, in the consistency, and in the moments where you choose growth over comfort. If your actions don't align with the future you claim to want, it's time to ask yourself, what am I waiting for? The future isn't coming. It's being built by the person you choose to be today. What if the words you keep locked inside are the very ones that could unravel everything? What if, in holding back the truth, you're preserving a fragile structure, one that might crumble if you spoke freely? There are things we never say, secrets, fears, desires, that remain hidden in the shadows of our minds. But what if these unspoken truths are the ones that define us? What if by keeping them inside, we're not just protecting others, but protecting ourselves from facing the consequences of release? Imagine the weight of silence. It's a kind of control, a way to maintain order in chaos. We carefully choose what we say and what we don't. There are words that would shatter relationships, alter perceptions, change the course of our lives forever. The moment you speak those words, the delicate balance you've kept intact could be destroyed. But is it the fear of breaking that keeps you silent? Or the realization that the truth might set you free? What if, by voicing what's hidden, you would finally release the chains that bind you to your fears, to the past, to the expectations of others? In a world where we are so often defined by the things we say, what would happen if we spoke what we never dared to before? Would we find liberation? Or would we be left with the ruins of what we thought we knew? The truth is, silence is powerful, but it's also dangerous. It holds everything back, but it also prevents healing. So ask yourself, what do you never say? And if you did, what would break? Would it be worth the destruction to feel whole again? What if every strong person, every unshakable force, every towering structure hides a hidden flaw? Imagine the most resilient, steadfast individual, someone who faces the world without hesitation, seemingly unbreakable. But beneath the surface, within their core, there lies a crack, unseen by the world, imperceptible to all but themselves. It's easy to assume that strength is absolute, that power is unyielding. But the truth is, every strong entity carries the weight of vulnerability. The tallest tree, the most ancient oak, stands tall for centuries, but its roots, its heart, may be compromised by an unseen flaw, a crack hidden beneath layers of bark. We often forget that strength isn't about invulnerability. True strength lies in the ability to endure despite imperfections, despite the cracks that lie beneath the surface. When we look at humans, we see strength in resilience, in perseverance, in the face of challenges. But what if those who seem invincible are merely hiding their own hidden cracks, weaknesses, or unresolved fears? What if, in our pursuit of perfection, we overlook the flaws that actually make us human? So, what would make you fall? It's not the weight of the world, it's the unseen cracks, the unnoticed imperfections, the vulnerabilities we hide. When those cracks are exposed, it doesn't signify weakness. It simply reveals that we, like every other strong entity, are not invincible. It's the imperfection that makes us resilient. What if nothing really matters? What if all the struggles, the triumphs, the pain, and the joy were just fleeting moments in the grand cosmic dance, destined to fade away? Would it change how you live? Would it make you surrender, or would it set you free? In the vastness of time and space, where galaxies are born and die in the blink of an eye, the things that consume us might seem insignificant. And yet, isn't it this very impermanence that gives life its beauty? If nothing truly mattered in the grand scheme of things, could you live better knowing that every moment is temporary? Would you stop clinging to expectations, to past regrets, or to fears of the future? What if the freedom to live fully was hidden in that understanding, that none of it lasts forever, and therefore, none of it is worth holding on to too tightly? In this fleeting existence, could you embrace each moment for what it is, unburdened by the weight of long-term consequences or the pressure of leaving a legacy? What if the beauty of life was found not in permanence, but in its very transience? Like the ephemeral bloom of a flower that withers away, or the quiet calm before a storm, it's the briefness of things that often makes them precious. So, could you live better if nothing truly mattered? Maybe it's not about surrendering to nihilism, but about finding peace in the knowing that everything will pass. In that awareness, perhaps you'll find a deeper way of living, free from the chains of expectations, embracing the now without the fear of it slipping away. Because in the end, isn't it the temporary nature of life that gives us the chance to truly experience it? What if you've been mistaken all along? What if you've confused the comfort of routine for the promise of growth? Imagine waking up each day, following the same patterns, the same rituals. The alarm rings, you rise, you work, you eat, you sleep. But somewhere along the way, something gets lost. Growth isn't always visible. It doesn't always announce itself like a new habit or a skill. Sometimes it's quieter, subtle. But it's there, if you're truly moving forward. The truth is, routines are comforting. They offer stability, control, and familiarity. They're safe. But in the safety of these daily habits, do you find yourself becoming stagnant? Are you evolving? Or have you fallen into a loop, spinning in place, convinced that you're progressing when, in reality, you've just learned how to move with minimal effort? You keep yourself busy, but is it the right kind of busy? Think about it. Growth is discomforting. It pushes you into unknown spaces, challenges your limits, and demands change. It asks questions that don't have easy answers, and it doesn't settle for complacency. But when routine becomes a shield, it stops you from reaching for something greater. It comforts you, yes, but only at the cost of potential. What if the life you're living is more about survival than thriving? It's easy to get comfortable in the patterns you've built, but growth doesn't happen in the absence of challenge. Ask yourself, are you truly evolving, or are you simply going through the motions, waiting for life to change on its own, while all along you remain the same? The truth is, the more you hold on to what's familiar, the more you risk missing out on what's waiting just outside your comfort zone. The journey of growth is unpredictable. It's uncomfortable, unpredictable, and sometimes painful, but it's the only way to know you're truly alive. Growth doesn't happen on autopilot. It demands your presence, your courage, your willingness to step into the unknown. What if the part of you that pretends is not just a mask, but a defense, a shield built to keep the world at arm's length? What if, over time, pretending has become so ingrained in you that you don't even recognize it anymore? The act of pretending can be a survival tactic, a way to protect yourself from judgment, from vulnerability, from being hurt. But what happens when the mask you wear becomes the only version of yourself, you know? Imagine a child who hides their tears behind a smile, pretending to be strong because they have learned that the world doesn't always reward softness. Or an adult who wears success as armor, never showing the cracks that lie beneath, pretending everything is perfect because the alternative feels too risky. In those moments, pretending becomes a form of protection, a way to control the narrative of who we are, to present what we believe others expect. But over time, that act of pretending can slowly consume us, suffocating the authentic parts of ourselves we've tucked away for fear of rejection. Pretending can protect, yes. It can keep you safe from the sharp edges of reality, from the vulnerability of being seen. But what if, by pretending, you're also blocking the very things that make you real? The connection, the authenticity, the messy parts of your humanity, that are beautiful precisely because they are imperfect? What if pretending keeps you from growing, from facing your true feelings, from embracing the parts of yourself that need healing? The truth is, the more you pretend, the further you drift from who you truly are. Pretending may seem like a temporary fix, but in the long run, it keeps you trapped in a version of yourself that isn't fully alive. What if the freedom you're seeking isn't out there, in the persona you've created, but within the vulnerability you've been avoiding? What if letting go of the act, allowing yourself to be seen in all your rawness, is the key to finally feeling truly free? What if the key to healing isn't in fixing, numbing, or running from pain, but in sitting with it, fully feeling it in its rawest form? Imagine not immediately reaching for a solution, not drowning the discomfort in distractions or temporary reliefs, but allowing yourself to be present with your own suffering. What if, instead of trying to escape it, you simply accepted it as part of your current reality? Pain has a way of demanding our attention, doesn't it? Whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological, it feels like something we need to eliminate, to erase, to numb. We're taught to avoid discomfort at all costs, to seek pleasure, joy, and ease. But what if, in the avoidance, we're missing something essential? What if the pain itself, uncomfortable as it is, carries wisdom, transformation, and understanding that can't be accessed by simply running away from it? When you sit with pain, it's not about surrendering to it or allowing it to consume you. It's about creating space for it to be. You stop resisting and start observing. It's in these moments of acceptance that pain becomes something different. It becomes a teacher. You might find that by sitting with it, you can unravel its hold over you. It's not the pain that controls you, but your reaction to it. This is the paradox. By not immediately fixing, numbing, or fleeing, you allow yourself the freedom to truly process. Pain, when fully felt, can lose its power over you. It no longer defines you, no longer shapes your world through avoidance. Instead, it becomes a part of your experience, a passing moment that doesn't need to be feared. Can you sit with pain without judgment, without a need to change it, and simply let it exist? In that stillness, you might just discover that you are not your pain. You are the observer, the one who can witness it and let it pass. What if the moments when you felt truly alive weren't just fleeting experiences, but glimpses into the core of your being? Imagine the last time you truly felt that rush, when everything around you faded away, and the world seemed to open up, pulsing with energy. You were completely present, fully immersed in the moment. It could have been a spontaneous adventure, a moment of pure joy, or simply the deep connection you felt with someone or something. But why don't you chase that feeling anymore? As time passes, we often lose touch with that sense of aliveness. Life becomes routine. The thrill fades and the fire dims. We settle into patterns, into roles, into expectations, and somewhere along the way, we forget how to chase those fleeting moments that made us feel so deeply connected to the world. The weight of responsibilities, the monotony of everyday life, the fear of disappointment, these things start to block the path to our most alive selves. But why don't we chase it anymore? Is it because we've convinced ourselves that it's too risky, too unpredictable? Or have we simply become so accustomed to living without that spark that we no longer recognize its absence? What if chasing that feeling isn't about seeking external experiences, but reconnecting with the parts of ourselves we've forgotten? What if, deep down, you're still capable of that feeling of pure aliveness? Maybe the real question is not when you last felt alive, but why you stopped seeking that feeling in the first place? Could it be that the pursuit of it is what truly brings us back to life? What if pride isn't about what you've achieved, but about the sheer fact that you're still here? What if it's not about the awards, the accolades, or the milestones, but the quiet strength that got you through the darkest days? Are you proud of yourself? Or are you just proud that you survived the storms, the challenges, the battles you didn't think you could win? Survival can feel like an accomplishment in itself, but sometimes we confuse it with true pride. We get through life, often just holding on, trying to make it from one day to the next. The external markers of success might seem distant or even impossible, but surviving is a victory in itself. It's the moments when you thought you couldn't take another step, yet you kept going. It's the times you thought you couldn't fight anymore, but you stood up and faced the world once again. But is that enough? Or is there more to be proud of? True pride isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. It's about looking at the journey, through all its pain, heartache, and struggles. and saying, I have become more than what I was yesterday. It's about knowing your worth, not because the world told you, but because you recognized it within yourself. So, ask yourself, are you just proud of surviving, or are you proud of the person you've become despite it all? Sometimes, survival is the first step, but true pride comes from the strength it took to keep going and the person you've evolved into along the way. What if the path you're walking isn't truly yours, but the one that hurt the least? Imagine standing at a crossroad, faced with countless possibilities, each one leading in a different direction. But instead of choosing the one that truly calls to you, you pick the one that feels safest, the one that doesn't demand too much of you, the one that feels like the least amount of pain. You tell yourself that it's the right path, that it's just the one life led you to. But what if it's just the path that felt? The truth is, it's easy to fall into a life that is comfortable, that's been shaped by others' expectations, or the weight of past decisions. You start out wanting something more, something real, but somewhere along the way, the noise of life drowns out your desires. It's easier to take the familiar route, to avoid the discomfort of change, to avoid risking failure. But is that truly living, or is it just surviving? Every step along this path, while free of sharp turns or painful lessons, carries its own weight. The quiet ache of unrealized potential, the gnawing feeling that something is missing, something deeper, something truer. You may tell yourself that you're content, that this life is enough, but is it the life you want or the one you settled for? What if the pain you've avoided is the very thing that would lead you to who you're meant to be? What if the struggle you've shied away from is the key to growth, to freedom, to the true version of yourself? The question isn't about avoiding pain, it's about what you learn from it, what you build through it. Ask yourself, are you walking a path because it's the easiest, or because it's the one that truly aligns with your soul? The path you choose today could shape the person you become tomorrow. Don't let comfort be your guide. Seek the path that challenges you, that forces you to grow. That's where the truth lies. What if the thing holding you back from changing isn't fear or lack of willpower, but comfort itself? What if the very comfort you cling to is the cage keeping you from breaking free? We all seek comfort. It's human nature. We gravitate toward the familiar, the predictable, the safe. But here's the paradox. While comfort feels like security, it can also be the very thing that keeps us locked in place, unable to move forward. Imagine the warmth of a cozy bed on a cold morning. It feels good, doesn't it? You don't want to leave. You want to stay wrapped in that warmth. But at some point, you must get up. If you don't, you risk missing out on the opportunities of the day, the growth. The experience is waiting beyond the covers. Yet, you hesitate, pulled by the softness of comfort, convincing yourself that it's not the right moment for change. But that moment never comes. The bed remains cozy, and you remain stuck. The same can be said for your life. Change is uncomfortable, it's raw, it's uncertain, and it challenges everything you think you know about yourself. But it's also where growth lives. Comfort, on the other hand, tricks you into thinking you're safe, but all you're really doing is stagnating. It's a soft prison that keeps you tethered to the past, preventing you from becoming who you're meant to be. It's easy to fall into a routine, to stay in a job that doesn't challenge you, or maintain relationships that don't serve your growth. But all of this only reinforces the idea that comfort is safety. What if the prison of comfort is what you need to escape? What if true freedom lies in the discomfort of change? Yes, change is hard, but without it, you remain trapped in the same cycle, never truly experiencing the life you could have. The real question is, how long will you choose comfort over the potential for growth? How long will you stay in the soft prison before you realize that the key to your freedom has always been in your hands? What if the thing that scares you most isn't something external, but something buried deep within you? What if the greatest fear isn't loss, or meaninglessness, or even the truth, but the possibility that we might not fully understand our own fears? Imagine standing at the edge of that fear, knowing that confronting it could unravel everything you've ever believed. What if, in facing what frightens you, you have to confront the very foundation of your existence? Loss is a terrifying prospect, isn't it? We fear losing the people we love, the things we cherish, the sense of security we've built around ourselves. The idea that everything could be stripped away, our relationships, our possessions, our status, leaves us vulnerable and exposed. But what if loss is a part of life's flow, an inevitable cycle that teaches us the impermanence of everything? What if, instead of fearing it, we accepted loss as a natural part of our human experience? Then, there's meaninglessness, the fear that nothing we do matters, that life is a series of random events without any greater purpose. This fear can be suffocating, as it questions the very core of our existence. What if, in that emptiness, we find freedom instead? What if meaning isn't something we uncover, but something we create with every choice, every action, every connection we make? But the truth, now, that's something else. What if the truth is the most terrifying thing of all? The truth about who we really are, about the nature of existence, about what lies beyond the surface of our everyday lives. What if knowing the truth shatters our illusions, disturbs the comfort of our routines, and forces us to reckon with the unknown? So, what scares you most? Loss, meaninglessness, or knowing the truth? Or perhaps, the most terrifying thing of all is realizing that we may never fully know what we fear, and in that uncertainty, we are both powerless and free. Are you climbing anything real? What if the ladder you're climbing isn't leading you anywhere that truly matters? Imagine for a moment that you've been tirelessly climbing towards a goal, reaching for something you believe will bring fulfillment, success, or happiness. With each step, you feel the weight of progress. Each milestone feels like an achievement, a step closer to something greater. But what if, when you finally reach the top, you realize that the view isn't what you expected? What if the climb was real, but the destination was empty? Success often tricks us into thinking that progress is always forward, always meaningful. Society tells us that the higher we climb, the more fulfilled we will be, that achievements, accolades, and recognition are the keys to feeling complete. But what if success, as we've defined it, isn't the end goal at all? What if we've been chasing something that doesn't fulfill the deepest parts of us? The truth is, success can feel like progress even when it's hollow. It's easy to get caught in the pursuit of external validation, whether it's a job title, a paycheck, or social status. But when we base our worth on these things, we risk climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. What if success isn't defined by the destination, but by the journey itself? The most meaningful progress doesn't come from the external, but from the internal shifts. When you realize that the climb isn't about reaching the top, but about the growth and understanding that comes with each step. So, are you climbing anything real, or are you simply racing toward a vision that may not bring the fulfillment you expect? Success can feel like progress, but true progress comes when we stop climbing for the sake of climbing and start asking ourselves, is this where I really want to go? What if you could rewrite your story? What if every mistake, every misstep, every regret could be erased, rewritten into something more perfect, more aligned with who you want to be? Would you take that chance? Or would you fear that in the process of changing the past, you might lose yourself in the future? We all have moments we wish we could change, the things we said, the paths we chose, the opportunities we missed. It's tempting to imagine how different life might be if we could just go back with the knowledge we have now and make different choices. But what would that version of you look like? Would it still be the same person, or would the essence of who you are change with every small alteration? What makes you, you is the sum of your experiences, the things you learned, the pain you endured, and the growth you achieved. If you rewrote it all, would the core of who you are still stand? Or would you become a stranger to yourself, a different version of someone who never lived the life you did? In a sense, our mistakes and struggles are what shape our identity. Every regret, every flaw, is a thread in the fabric of who we are. So, would you rewrite your story? And if you did, could you still say you are the same person? Perhaps the key isn't in erasing the past, but in accepting it, embracing the lessons it taught us and the person it helped us become. Because maybe, just maybe, the person we are today is the one who needed all of it to survive, to thrive, to be who we truly are. What if your dreams, once vibrant and full of life, have slowly faded into just another item on your to-do list? Imagine the spark you once felt, the drive, the fire, the passion to chase something bigger than yourself. It was exhilarating, full of possibilities. But somewhere, somehow, that excitement began to fade. Now, your dreams aren't the beautiful, untamed visions they once were. They're just tasks, things you feel you should do, not must do. They've become the quiet whispers in the background. Think about it. Dreams are meant to inspire you, to pull you toward a future that feels alive with possibility. But As life pushes forward and the weight of responsibility and routine builds up, dreams can start to lose their power. They become obligations, deadlines, things to check off to feel like you're progressing, but not really growing. When was the last time you looked at your dream and felt that spark of excitement? Or have you become so accustomed to marking off tasks that you've forgotten what it felt like to truly desire something, to feel your heart race at the thought of what's ahead? Dreams aren't meant to be compartmentalized or quantified. They're meant to be felt deeply, to be chased with reckless abandon, to make you feel alive. What if, in all the busyness of life, you've lost touch with what truly matters to you? What if your dreams have become something to check off, a box to tick, instead of the guiding stars that once set your course? Ask yourself, are you living your dreams, or are you simply going through the motions, crossing off tasks, while the magic of those dreams slips through your fingers? The question isn't about how much you've achieved, it's about whether you're still chasing what excites you. The task list can wait. It's your dreams that should keep you up at night. What if the day that broke you is not a single event, but a series of moments, a slow accumulation of weight that you didn't notice until it was too much to bear? What if the day you think of as the day everything fell apart was just the tipping point, the moment when your body, your heart, your mind finally said enough? We all have a day, an experience that we believe broke us. It may have been a loss, a failure, or an unexpected event that shattered the illusion of control. But what if that breaking was never about destruction at all? What if it was the beginning of something new, something you couldn't see at the time? Imagine standing in the ruins of a life you once thought was unbreakable. You look around, and everything is in pieces, scattered, irreparable. At that moment, it feels as though there's no coming back, as if you'll never be whole again. And yet, days, weeks, even years later, you realize that you've picked up the pieces, one by one, and somehow rebuilt yourself. Not to be the same, but to be something different, something stronger. But did you ever truly recover? Recovery is a tricky word. We often think of it as a return to what was, back to normal, back to who we were before the break. But what if recovery isn't about returning at all? What if recovery is about evolving, about transforming into someone who carries the weight without being crushed by it? The scars from the day that broke you might never fully fade, but maybe that's okay. Perhaps those scars are the evidence of strength, of resilience, of the human ability to rebuild when everything seems lost. So, what if recovery isn't about going back? What if it's about going forward, taking everything you learned from the break and using it to shape the person you're becoming? The day that broke you wasn't the end. It was the beginning of your rebirth. The real question is, how will you use the broken pieces to create something even more beautiful than what was there before? What if the person you think you are isn't really you at all, but a reflection shaped by the world around you? What if, in the constant feedback of society, relationships, and expectations, you've slowly lost sight of who you truly are? Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of seeing your own reflection, you see the image of someone else, someone you've become but never truly chose. What if, in the pursuit of belonging, love, or approval, you've let someone else's version of yourself become your reality? We all wear masks, don't we? We adapt, we change, we shift ourselves to meet the needs of the world around us. But how often do we stop to ask, who am I beneath all of this? Are the choices we make truly ours, or are they influenced by the voices of others? In the endless dance of social roles and expectations, do we recognize our own face, or are we simply mirroring the faces that have been imposed on us? Think about it. How many times have you made a decision, big or small, and realized later that it wasn't something you wanted, but something you thought you should want? Maybe it was a career path, a relationship, a belief you held, all shaped by external forces, not by your authentic self. What happens when we fade into these reflections of others? We lose our sense of self, our essence, our true desires. But what if recognizing yourself isn't about looking outward? It's about looking inward. It's about peeling back the layers that have been added over time and asking, what do I want? What do I feel? Who am I when no one else is watching? What if the key to rediscovering yourself is in the quiet moments of reflection, the ones that ask you to stand still, to listen to your own heartbeat, and to let go of the voices that aren't your own? So, do you recognize yourself? Or have you slowly faded into someone else's reflection? The truth is, you're still there, waiting to be rediscovered, your authentic self, free from the expectations of others. All it takes is a moment of self-awareness, a willingness to look beyond the mirror, and a courage to step into who you truly are. What if the light that guides you isn't a blazing beacon, but a small flickering flame that stubbornly refuses to go out, even when everything around you feels dark? Imagine walking through life, sometimes feeling lost, unsure of your path. And yet there's always a faint glow, a whisper of direction, lingering somewhere within you. It's not bright, it's not constant, but it's there, persistent, guiding you forward even when you can't always see it clearly. We often think that guidance must be obvious, bright, unwavering, like a shining star in the night sky. We expect certainty, a clear path illuminated in front of us. But in reality, the light that guides us is often far more subtle. It's the quiet sense of purpose, the small moments of hope that sneak in during our darkest times. It could be the belief in something greater than ourselves, the love we hold for others, or a deep-rooted passion that quietly stirs within us. Even when life seems uncertain or overwhelming, this flickering light is a reminder that we're not truly lost. It's still there, waiting for us to reach for it. And when that light dims, when it flickers or feels out of reach, it doesn't mean it's gone. It simply means we've forgotten to notice it. It's easy to be consumed by the noise of life, by the chaos or fear that surrounds us, but that light is always there, whispering to us, nudging us, guiding us forward. It's not about waiting for the light to blaze brightly again, but about trusting that even in its dimmest form, it's still guiding you. So, what light still guides you, even when it's dim and flickering? The most powerful light often isn't the one that dazzles us, but the one that patiently persists, even in the darkest of moments. What if the things you've been avoiding aren't just challenges? They're the very truths you've yet to confront. What if the fears, the unresolved emotions, and the parts of your past you keep pushing away are not as distant as they seem, but lurking right under the surface, waiting for the right moment to resurface? Avoidance doesn't erase, it only buries. It's memory's favorite disguise, masking what's painful, what's unresolved, with the illusion of peace. We all have things we haven't faced yet, deep-rooted fears, past traumas, or even parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge. Maybe it's a choice you've been too afraid to make, a conversation you keep avoiding, or a truth you're not ready to accept. But the more we avoid these things, the heavier they become, until one day they'll push their way to the surface, demanding attention. Avoidance convinces us we're in control, that if we ignore something long enough, it will disappear. But in truth, all we're doing is allowing these unresolved pieces of our lives to take root, growing quietly in the shadows. They shape our decisions, our relationships, our perceptions of the world around us, even if we don't realize it. So, what haven't you faced yet? The things you avoid are not gone. They are simply waiting, disguised as memories, emotions, or fears. But the only way forward is to face them, to confront what's been hidden in the dark. When you do, you'll find that the truth is rarely as terrifying as the avoidance that built it up. Only by facing what's been buried can you finally release the grip of the past and move forward into a life that's truly yours. What if peace doesn't come from holding on, but from letting go? Imagine gripping something so tightly, fearing that if you release it, it might slip away forever. Your hands are clenched, your mind is fixed, and every breath you take is a strain against the weight of whatever you're holding on to. But what if, in all that tension, you're pushing peace further away? What if the very thing you're trying to protect is what's preventing you from finding the calm you so desperately seek? Think about it. We often cling to things in life, ideas, people, memories, believing that holding tightly is the only way to keep them safe. But in reality, all we're doing is suffocating them and ourselves. We grip tighter, convinced that control will bring us comfort. Yet, what we don't realize is that the tighter we hold, the more we suffocate our own peace, our own sense of freedom. What if letting go doesn't mean losing? What if it's the very thing that allows you to find what you truly need? The tighter you clutch, the harder it becomes to breathe. Sometimes, peace isn't found in the struggle to hold on to what's slipping away, but in the simple act of releasing. In letting go, you make room for new things to enter, for new ways of thinking, for new possibilities to unfold. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped holding so tightly? What would happen if you released the grip on fear, on expectations, on the past? The world doesn't crumble when you release. it opens up. You might be surprised at how much peace arrives the moment you decide to stop controlling everything. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply let go. Peace comes not from holding tightly, but from releasing what no longer serves you. What if the oldest wound inside you isn't something that happened yesterday, but something that has been there for so long that it feels like a part of you? What if it's a scar you carry without even realizing how deep it goes? Something you've tried to forget, but it still echoes through your choices, your relationships, your every interaction. Our oldest wounds are the ones that shape us in ways we often can't see, the ones we've buried so far beneath the surface that we forget they're there until they're triggered. Imagine for a moment a wound you've carried since childhood, an experience that taught you to close yourself off, to guard your heart, to trust less. Maybe it was a loss, a betrayal, a failure that defined your view of yourself and the world. You didn't ask for it, but it became a part of your story, shaping your fears, your defenses, your inability to fully let go. You tried to heal, but healing isn't always as simple as time passing. Sometimes the wound remains, quietly influencing every relationship, every choice you make. But the real question is, who have you silently bled onto? Who have you hurt without intending to, because your pain was never fully dealt with? Often we carry our wounds into the world, expecting others to see the best of us, while we secretly drip our hurt into their lives. We don't mean to, but our unresolved pain can spill over in ways we don't notice. Unspoken resentment, defensive walls, disconnected behavior. People close to us may feel the weight of our wounds without understanding the source. The wound becomes not just ours, but theirs too, though they may never know why they're carrying it. What if healing isn't just about addressing your own pain, but about stopping the cycle of bleeding onto others? What if the path to true recovery lies not only in mending your own wounds, but in recognizing how your hurt affects the world around you? The oldest wound may never disappear completely, but acknowledging it and its impact on others can be the first step toward real healing, toward breaking free from the silent ways we bleed onto those we love. What if joy feels foreign to you, like a strange, unwelcomed guest? What if, deep down, you're afraid to embrace happiness because it feels too vulnerable, too fleeting, too fragile to trust? Happiness, after all, is a delicate thing. When you've spent so much of your life in the storm of chaos, where things are unpredictable and out of control, how can you believe in something as serene as joy? Imagine standing in the calm after a storm, knowing the peace is temporary, knowing that chaos is always just around the corner. What if, in a world where turmoil feels familiar, joy feels like a threat instead of a blessing? When chaos is all you've known, happiness can seem almost dangerous. It's an interruption, a disruption of the very rhythm you've adapted to. You might think, what if I open myself to joy, only to have it taken away, to have the storm return? The fear is not necessarily that joy will come, it's that it will leave, and you'll be left with emptiness once again. In that sense, joy can feel like a tease, a reminder of how fleeting and fragile life can be. But what if that fear of joy is the thing keeping you trapped in the cycle of chaos? What if by resisting happiness, by holding back from letting yourself fully feel joy, you're denying yourself the healing power it brings? Joy is not just about external circumstances. It's an internal choice, an acceptance of what is good, even in the midst of pain. It's about trusting that, despite the chaos, moments of peace and contentment can still exist. Consider this. In the same way that chaos has shaped you, joy has the power to transform you. It's not about denying the challenges or the hardships of life, but about finding space for joy in the midst of them. Perhaps joy doesn't have to be perfect or permanent. It's enough that it's real in the moment, a reminder that there is light even when the darkness feels overwhelming. So, are you afraid of joy? Maybe happiness feels dangerous because you've only known chaos. But what if, by opening yourself to joy, you're not giving in to fragility? You're reclaiming your right to experience life in its fullest, most profound form. What if every ending you've encountered, no matter how painful, confusing, or final it seemed, was simply a whisper, a quiet invitation to begin again? Imagine standing at the edge of something you thought was the end, only to realize that, in that moment, you're actually standing at the threshold of something new, something waiting to be discovered. What if the things we perceive as endings are just transitions, Moments where the door closes behind us and another one slowly creaks open, waiting for us to step through. We often fear endings. They carry with them a sense of loss, finality, and uncertainty. Whether it's the end of a relationship, a job, a chapter in our lives, or even a dream we thought we could never abandon, endings can feel like a door slamming shut in our face. But what if, instead of seeing these moments as closures, we saw them as openings? What if every time something ended, it was a subtle signal that a new beginning was already germinating, waiting for us to take that first step into the unknown? Think about it. How many times have you come to a crossroads, unsure of which direction to take, and yet something within you pushed you to move forward? That impulse, that pull to begin again, comes from within, even when the path ahead is unclear. It's the quiet strength that whispers to us in the aftermath of endings, urging us to move past the pain, the confusion, and the fear, and embrace the unknown. So, where do you begin again? The truth is, every ending holds the seeds of a new beginning. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment to restart. It's about recognizing that even in our lowest points, even when everything feels like it's crumbling, we are always on the verge of something new. The next chapter isn't far behind. It's already unfolding, ready for us to step into. What if acceptance isn't always the peace it seems to be? What if, sometimes, what we call acceptance is really just surrender in disguise, a quiet defeat that we convince ourselves is a choice? There are moments in life when we settle, telling ourselves we've made peace with a situation, when, deep down, we know we've only given up the fight. Surrender and defeat can wear the same face, and it's not always easy to tell them apart. We often think of acceptance as a strength, a sign of wisdom, of knowing when to let go. And there is truth in that. There are battles we don't need to fight, moments we can't control, and things that will never be the way we want them to be. But there's a thin line between accepting what we cannot change and resigning ourselves to something we believe we cannot escape. The latter isn't peace, it's the quiet weight of defeat. So, what have you accepted? Have you made peace with something because it truly brought you peace? Or did you simply stop fighting because you didn't think you had the strength to go on? The difference is subtle, but important. True acceptance is freeing. It's an active choice to let go and move forward. Surrender, on the other hand, is passive. It's the moment you stop believing change is possible and you stop fighting for the life you want. Acceptance should empower you. It should open doors, not close them. It should leave you feeling free, not trapped in a cage of your own making. So, ask yourself, what have you accepted? And is it a choice made out of wisdom or a concession made out of fear? Surrender is not failure, unless you allow it to be. What if the way people see you isn't truly seeing at all? Imagine being in a room full of faces, each one glancing in your direction, each one assessing you at a glance. They see the surface, the way you walk, the clothes you wear, the smile you put on. But what if that's all they'll ever see? What if no one ever bothers to look deeper, to ask the questions that truly matter? The truth is, we often go through life feeling as though we've been seen, yet no one really looks beyond the surface. Think about it. It's easy to be scanned, your appearance, your actions, your words all processed in seconds. But true seeing, true understanding, it's rare. To be fully seen is to be understood in ways that go far beyond a glance. It's when someone looks at you and doesn't just see what's on the outside, but also listens to your silence, feels the weight of your unspoken thoughts, and recognizes the layers beneath your exterior. What if the people around you are only seeing your mask, the version of yourself that you show the world? But what if, in hiding behind that mask, you've stopped being fully seen? What if you've become so good at playing the part that even you've forgotten who you really are underneath? Or true connection doesn't happen on the surface. It happens when someone dares to look deeper, to ask the questions that make you uncomfortable. It happens when someone sees beyond your role, beyond your achievements, and recognizes the quiet moments that define who you truly are. Have you ever been fully seen? Or have you simply been scanned by people who never take the time to ask the questions that matter? The truth is, being seen isn't just about being noticed, it's about being understood. And that kind of understanding requires depth, vulnerability, and courage. To be seen, truly seen, is to be known in a way that makes you feel alive. What if the thing you fear losing the most is already slipping through your fingers? quietly taking more from you than you realize. We all have something or someone that we hold so tightly, convinced that without it, we will break. But here's the catch. Sometimes, the fear of loss controls us long before we actually lose anything. It shapes our decisions, keeps us trapped in the past, and holds us back from fully embracing what is in front of us. Imagine the person you love most in the world. You fear losing them, not just because of the void it would leave, but because the thought of that loss stirs something deep inside you, something you can't fully understand. This fear drives you to hold tighter, to cling to what you have. But what if, in your attempt to prevent that loss, you're already losing something more valuable? Maybe you've become so consumed by the thought of losing them that you've lost sight of them altogether. You focus so much on preserving the bond that you forget to nurture it, to appreciate it for what it is right now. The same can be said for our dreams, our security, our comfort. Fear of losing our sense of stability can prevent us from taking the risks necessary to grow. We stay where we are, clinging to the familiar, but in doing so, we close ourselves off to the possibilities that could bring us closer to the life we truly desire. By trying to preserve the past, we often sacrifice the future. What if that fear of loss, instead of protecting you, is slowly taking more than you know? What if the energy you pour into guarding against loss is draining the life out of your present? Fear has a sneaky way of controlling us, convincing us that we're protecting something, when in reality, we might be suffocating it. The more we fear losing something, the more we risk losing ourselves in the process. So, what if the only way to truly keep what you value is to let go of the fear of losing it, to stop living in a constant state of defense, and start living with the acceptance that loss, while painful, is a part of life? Perhaps the true loss isn't in the things we fear to lose, but in the life we forfeit while we're consumed by that fear. What if the truth you fear most is the one that could set you free? The one you've spent your life avoiding, pushing aside, and refusing to acknowledge? What if, deep within, you know the answer to your greatest questions, but you refuse to face it because doing so would shatter everything you've built up around yourself? Imagine standing in front of a wall, strong, tall, unyielding. On the other side, there's clarity, understanding, peace. But the wall remains, blocking your path, keeping you from what you've been searching for all along. What truth lies beyond that wall? And why won't you break it down? We all have truths we deny, don't we? They aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they're whispers in the back of our minds, moments of discomfort that we try to ignore. These truths are often the ones that could change everything. The ones that, if we finally confronted them, would force us to reevaluate our beliefs, our actions, our entire worldview. But acknowledging them means facing the discomfort, the pain, the vulnerability of transformation. It's easier to live in denial, to keep the wall intact, even if it keeps us stuck in a cycle of confusion and frustration. But what if the very thing you fear breaking is the key to unlocking your greatest clarity? The wall you refuse to confront might be the thing that holds you back from your fullest potential. Maybe the truth you're hiding from is the truth that will set you free, the truth about who you really are, what you truly need, and where you truly want to go. Consider this. The more we resist the truth, the more power we give to the lies we tell ourselves. The longer we avoid facing what we know deep down, the more we rob ourselves of the clarity and peace that comes with acceptance. Your greatest clarity hides behind the very wall you refuse to break, but only by facing it will you be able to move forward. So, what truth do you deny? And what will it take for you to tear down the wall and finally embrace the clarity that's waiting for you on the other side? What if love isn't just something we give, but something we constantly measure, wondering if we've given enough, if it's ever truly enough? Imagine reflecting on your relationships, the bonds you've built, and the people who've crossed your path. Have you loved them enough? Have you shown them in every way possible how deeply you care, how much they matter? It's a question that often lingers, a quiet voice in the back of your mind that wonders if the love you've given is enough to make the difference you hope for. But then, another thought creeps in. Would they say the same? Would they believe you've loved them enough? We often look back on the moments we've shared with others and wonder if we could have done more, said more, been more. Have we loved with our full hearts, or have we held parts of ourselves back, too afraid to give completely? Sometimes, love feels like a series of missed opportunities, moments where we could have been more present, more vulnerable, more open. We question if the love we've given is enough to have made an impact, to have touched the lives of those we care about in the way we intended. But what if the question isn't about quantity? What if it's not about how many grand gestures or heartfelt words we've shared, but about the depth of connection in each moment? Love doesn't always need to be loud, or constant, or perfect. Sometimes, it's the quiet acts of kindness, the small gestures of care, the understanding that doesn't need words, that speak the loudest. So, have you loved enough? Perhaps the real question is, have you loved with intention, with sincerity, with openness? And would they say the same? In the end, love is less about measuring what we give and more about giving it without expectation, trusting that our efforts, no matter how imperfect, have made a difference in someone else's life. What if, in the quiet moments of your life, you've stopped becoming? What if, for all your ambitions, your dreams, and your desires, you've paused, frozen in place, too afraid of what lies beyond the edge of your comfort zone? Growth can feel overwhelming, and sometimes it's easier to stay still because the unknown is terrifying. But in staying still, are you denying yourself the chance to unfold into something more? There's a certain safety in inertia. When you stop reaching for more, stop striving for growth, you remove the risk of failure, of disappointment, of pain. But that safety comes at a cost. In standing still, you may be choosing comfort over the very thing that makes you alive. Change, transformation, the journey of becoming. To become is to constantly evolve, to stretch beyond who you were yesterday, to challenge your own limits, to risk it all for the possibility of something greater. But there's a danger in growth too, a fear of the unknown, of falling short, of the vulnerability that comes with change. So, sometimes we stop unfolding. We convince ourselves that it's better to remain where we are, even if that means holding ourselves back. But here's the question. Have you stopped becoming because it's safer to stay still? Or are you still pushing forward, stretching, reaching for what's next? True growth isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about embracing it, knowing that with each step, you are unfolding into a version of yourself that is stronger, more resilient, and more aligned with your true purpose. Are you still becoming, or have you settled for safety at the expense of your potential? The world is always changing, and so are you, if you allow it. What if this moment, this breath, this version of you was all there was? Imagine that everything you've ever wanted, everything you've ever hoped for, was already here, right in front of you. What if this moment is the only one that matters, and every other moment is just a fleeting thought, a memory waiting to fade? What if everything you've been waiting for, everything you've been chasing, was already unfolding in this very breath? Think about it. We spend our lives chasing something bigger, something better, convinced that the future holds all the answers. We push ourselves harder, go farther, climb higher, always thinking that the next step will bring us closer to the life we truly want. But what if the life we're seeking isn't out there, waiting to be discovered, but is already within us, waiting to be realized in this very moment? What if we stopped looking outward and started looking inward, realizing that we are enough what if this version of you, the one standing right here, right now, is enough? You've spent so much time wondering if you're good enough, if you've done enough, if you've become who you were supposed to be. But what if you've already arrived in ways you never expected? What if everything you've done, everything you've been through, has already shaped you into the person you needed to be for this moment? The question isn't whether you're enough. It's whether you're willing to accept that you are. What if, right now, is the time to stop searching for more and simply embrace what is, to stop racing toward a future that may never come and finally find peace in the present? If this was it, would it be enough? Would you be enough, just as you are? The truth is, you've always been enough. You just have to believe it.